Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, welcome everyone to come over to Hong Kong UST to join this workshop today. I would like to welcome everyone to join the workshop organized by the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, co-organized by ABS, Hong Kong Ship Owner Association, Hong Kong Liner Shipping Association, and Hong Kong Maritime Museum with the sponsorship by Invest Hong Kong. My name is Frida Fung. I'm the MC of today. I'm the Maritime Shipping Distinguished Fellow of the Climate Works Foundation, which is an organization that tries to amplify the power of philanthropy to drive shipping decarbonization. And I'm honored to be here to help introduce some of the distinguished speakers and also leaders in the industry that help to drive the shipping industry to go to zero emission by the mid-century, hopefully. I may just introduce a little bit about myself because I think this is also important to highlight what Hong Kong UST has been doing. Working for the foundation, we have been working quite closely in the last 3-4 years to try to do a bit more of the research, originally led by the team of the maritime researchers at Hong Kong UST, to look at analysis of how shipping can actually decarbonize, what is the emission levels right now in Hong Kong or in the region. But more and more, we are doing a bit more of a convening, like today's event, trying to bring in all the stakeholders, including also leading researchers and leading companies in this area, to talk and discuss and collaborate. So I'm very glad today we have this opportunity to have welcome you all here. Actually, in July, Hong Kong UST also organized another workshop which looked at smaller vessels, look at electrification. And today we look something bigger at ocean-going shipping. And today's event is mainly looking at methanol because this is a field that many industry stakeholders and also a lot of researchers have been investigating and also putting that actually on the water as a solution to decarbonize shipping. So today we will have 2 sessions to go through some very technical issues. But also in the first session, we will think a little bit broader to look at other types of fuel. What are the enabling conditions that need to be created in order for some zero-emission fuels to be able to be deployed and effectively reduce climate impacts. So we have a very tight program for 4 hours. So I don't want to take a lot of time to introduce our speakers. And if you want to know more about them, you can scan this QR code. It will provide the latest agenda and also the bio of the speakers. So without further ado, may I invite Christine, representing Hong Kong UST, to give some opening remarks. Thank you, Christine.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. I regard this little community who's here today as the super geeks of shipping issues. And I must admit, in the last 10 days, this is the 5th shipping meeting I've been to, ranging from Hong Kong all the way to Japan. It's exciting in the sense that if we go back a little bit in time, it's really only in the last year and a half or thereabout where there is this explosion of interest. And I think this has maybe many reasons, one of which I must admit is the IMO making some very firm decisions with timeline. But we're also seeing the shipping community, ship owners and others, fuel suppliers, and yourselves kind of waking up to this new timetable, and that there is so much energy in thinking about what to do next that suddenly I think the shipping community across the world has really sort of gripped this by the hand. And then of course we can't ignore the fact that in Hong Kong we just have the new policy address last Wednesday. But this is quite extraordinary, I think, for those of us who follow shipping matters. The huge section that is in here on not only transportation, but specifically on shipping fuels, bunkering and related issues. So I think today we have a chance to focus on one particular thing. And as Frida reminded us, back in July, I think some of you came to another workshop that we had that was focused on coastal harbor vessels on electrification. Now that in itself is a big issue for the economy of Hong Kong. And if we were to extend electrification into the GBA, you know, that really will transform shipping in our region. So lastly, I just want to say that, again, being in Hong Kong, being a part of mainland China, the role that mainland China has in this whole transformation for shipping will also be a very, very important role. So I think today we have you here. We have a number of experts who's going to share with us some perspective. In a way, we're all co-learning together about this new revolution that is coming. I'm very pleased that the director is here today to share his perspective with us. And I also feel that governments, not just the Hong Kong governments, that governments are learning as well. So in our experience, the best kind of co-learning is amongst all of us together. And having worked in policy in government, I feel that it's especially important for government and the industry to really spend a lot of time understanding each other, what the industry is capable of. And the industry, of course, has many other stakeholders. People who are building infrastructure, creating new fuels, and suddenly we have all these new people even coming out from all corners of the world, coming up with new ideas for fuels. So this is a world of some complexity that we all have to learn. And that's why I think at HKUST, whilst we have some research capability, we also want to offer ourselves as a platform for exchange of ideas. And I think we're particularly good at curating and providing dialogue for perhaps people in the industry, people with some background. So when we are a bit more ready and we have some direction or we have some questions that we want to take to the wider community, we would also be very pleased to organize platforms to take these issues to a wider audience. So without further ado, let me thank you again for being here, and let me invite the director to actually share some words with us. Please.
Professor Lok, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my privilege to be invited to this workshop on green methanol hosted by the HKUST. Hong Kong has long been a heart of global marine trade, both for cargo and fuel bunkering operations, as well as for maritime services. Our city's unique position as a gateway between the East and West provides us with profound competitive edges. It also brings with responsibility, a responsibility not only to facilitate trade and economy, but also to lead the change towards more sustainable and environment-friendly future. Along the pathway of decarbonization, there are different alternative marine fuels for our industry. We all agree that there is no one-size-fits-all solutions, and that multiple fuel approach are widely adopted. At this moment, green methanol presents a compelling option as an alternative fuel because it both aligns with environmental goals and it is more feasible operationally. Today, I'm delighted to see a diverse group of experts, scholars, researchers, operators from across different fields attending this workshop. Our gathering today is a very good example that demonstrates the importance of collaboration in addressing the challenges and opportunities. Each of you bring unique insights and experiences that will enrich the discussions today and shape the future of green marine fuel in Hong Kong. Today's agenda covers areas such as green corridor technology, supply and demand infrastructure, operations, training, and a lot of others. We will hear from industry leaders who have already embarked on this journey, sharing their successful stories and lessons learned. We will have the opportunity to look into the latest development in technology which can facilitate the transition from fossil fuel to green methanol. Equally important, we will also address the challenges lie ahead. The Hong Kong government has commenced a feasibility study earlier this year on providing green fuel bunkering for the port and ocean-going vessels in Hong Kong. I'm sure some of you have been involved in this study by providing inputs during the survey. The Transport and Logistics Bureau is now working on an action plan on the development of green fuel bunkering in Hong Kong, which is expected to be released very soon. As a government department overseeing port and ship safety in Hong Kong, the Marine Department have been working closely with the industry in formulating our regulatory frameworks to facilitate new fuel bunkering operations. The relevant legislation amendment proposals are being reviewed by the Legislation Council and are expected to come into force around the end of this year or latest by early next year. Meanwhile, the Marine Department keeps close collaboration with potential bunker operators in the development of code of practices and other standards to incorporate relevant safety standards for green fuel bunkering operation in Hong Kong. The Marine Department also administers fourth largest shipping register in the world. In July this year, the Hong Kong Shipping Registry has launched a green incentive to award Hong Kong registered ships gaining high ratings in the carbon intensity indicator formulated by the IMO. Today, Marine Department also here to hear your voice and collect feedbacks from the industry. And I like the words used by Professor Luk, co-learning. Welcome to co-learning from the industry. We have established a dedicated working group in our department to handle port and ship safety related matters on green fuel bunkering operations in Hong Kong. Potential operators and parties interested are welcome to approach us directly for working level discussions at any time. The marine industry plays a critical role in the global trade and economy, and decarbonizing our ships could not be achieved by the marine or shipping industry alone. The supply and demand situation of green fuel, such as methanol, are much more complicated than that we have been dealing with fossil fuel for the past decades. Collaborations cross industries and cross regions in Hong Kong, mainland China, and overseas countries by all parties concerned is a key in addressing the complexity of transition to green fuel. I look forward to the insightful discussion and fruitful collaboration that will emerge from this workshop. Your expertise, passion, and dedication are the driving force behind the progress we are making. Let us seize this opportunity to learn, to innovate, and to lead the way forward a green, more sustainable future for the maritime industry in Hong Kong. I wish you all a productive and inspiring afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shi, for your remark, and thank you for your leadership as well. This event would not be possible without our sponsor. So if I may I invite Mr. Benjamin Wong, Head of Transport and Logistics of Invest Hong Kong, to say a few words. Please.
Okay, thank you. I prepared also a speech opening remark. However, I think Mr. Shi has already spoken a lot of the initiative that the government is taking on the ocean-going vessel marine fuel. and what we are going to do about it. So maybe I'm thinking I could share a little bit on our experience in Norway. Before pandemic, there was a mission led by the secretary there, looking at their electrification of ferries. Now, ferries, not ocean-going vessels. But I think, it's also going through the process of the technology adoption, all the challenges that they are facing. So I think it's something that is worthwhile sharing. So at that time, they had their hybrid electric and diesel ferries. However, they were facing the issue of the power provision of the power company. They had to deal with the surge of the power demand when the ferry is berthed. So they came up with the portable, kind of like our portable charger, right? Except it's in a pontoon size portable charger. So they deal with it. Now, 5-6 years has passed, and this time when I go over there, actually now they have all the electric ferry, all going very well, no problem already. And now they are looking at hydrogen already. Now, when you look at it, Norway, actually they are quite fortunate in the sense that they had oil reserve on one hand. However, they also have a lot of hydropower. 95% and above is being hydropower in Norway. So actually, while they have the oil, they don't need to use it. They sell them, they put it in the sovereign fund. They use the fund to fund their electrification technology development. For Hong Kong, we don't have that, right? However, what we have, the government is doing, what we have is that on one hand, to do the infrastructure, the policies, legislations, to get it, the whole infrastructure, the plan on the ground, and then get it ready for the industry, for the development. Of course, nowadays we talk about methanol, but at the same time, we also still talking about also, for example, ammonia for ocean-going vessels. And this is something that, for this platform, I think it is very important for we to have this platform to exchange and see what's the way forward and how the government actually could work together with the industry to get the infrastructure legislations, policies, in place. Now, last week, the policy address actually is already got, as Christine mentioned, a very good portion of that actually is on the shipping side. Last year, we had the action plan, right, 30-some items, and this year we've got the policy address, a big portion of it, including the establishment of the Maritime and Port Development Board. Although we have the Maritime and Port Board right now, but it's a strengthened version to get more voices from the industry. So we think with that, actually, we will be able to have a stronger collaboration and also stronger research capability to not only for green shipping, but to drive the Hong Kong shipping industry ahead. Now, for the green shipping specifically, the Chief Executive has stated to develop Hong Kong into a green maritime center. Through the green transformation of registered ships, developing Hong Kong into a green maritime fuel bunkering center, and also green fuel bunkering facilities will be established. So this is a lot of work which we have to work together. And again, this platform actually will be able to provide a lot of useful information for us to leverage on and to make our work better. And that's all I have to say now. And I look forward to a very interesting and collaborating exchanges in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wong. So to mark this occasion, may I invite some of our prestigious guests for a time of photo taking? So maybe Christine?
Smile. Cute. So we'll take the camera. 3, 2, 1. Camera here. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, everyone, for taking a smiling picture. So I think now we're ready for our first presentation. And to kick things started, we have our own researchers from Hong Kong UST to help us explaining a little bit of the research that has been doing in the last several years. Judging, a PhD student of Hong Kong UST program, and he is also a core member of the research team working on shipping decarbonization. Today, he will share with us some of the research that he has conducted looking at some possible green corridors in Hong Kong, connected to Hong Kong, and what's the implication on emissions reduction and decarbonization. Thank you, Jiajing. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. I'm a PhD student in Hong Kong UST, supervised by Professor Alexis Lau and Professor Jimmy Chen. And today, on behalf of our team, I will bring two case studies on the emission, the carbon and air pollution reduction potential of turning the ship from the traditional fuel to methanol. And in addition to the carbon and air pollution reduction, I will also talk a little bit about the energy demands. By turning our ship into methanol power, what would be the potential energy demand that our ship is need? And so let's start from one single voyage from Shanghai to Hong Kong. Please let me briefly introduce our method. We are using the bottom-up approaches here. I think many guests today are already very familiar with the AIS system, which is something like GPS with the high resolution and real-time monitoring data of ship operations. We can determine the real-time engine load of the ship so that we can know the power demand of the ship. And by multiply this power demand with an emission factor either published by IMO or other scientists, we can estimate how much emission a ship is emitting. And in addition to the power demand, also fuel demand is also derived from the power demand. Let's talk a little bit about the definition of our one voyage. So how do we define a voyage? Basically, we count a voyage between two berthing events. You can see we have this type of the mode metric here. By taking into account the speed of the ship as well as the location of the ship, we can define whether a ship is really at a berth or it is just anchor or it is under a slow maneuvering or it is cruising. So if there is an anchor event between two berthing events, the anchorage event will not be taken into account and constitute as a full voyage, but they will be counted between the two berthing events here. So this is how we construct a voyage. By using our data mining approach here, we take out the yearly shipping activity between Hong Kong and Shanghai. We use the AIS data of the year 2021. From here, you can see the yearly trajectory from Hong Kong to Shanghai. And from all the activity, we extract one voyage of the targeted class container ship. We select a container ship whose deadweight tonnage ranges from around 15,000 to 27,000. This is because through our data mining, we find that the highest number of the container ships sailed from Hong Kong to Shanghai fall within this range, and this is also in line with the ICC International Clean Transport Council on Clean Transportation's latest publication. And today we are very honored and happy to have Mr. Meng here. He's from ICCT. Later he will share a little bit about their other research. And by extracting the activity out, then we apply the ship specification data up and combine it with the activity data. We find a specification of a similar ship here. Why we find similar ship here is because, unfortunately, for this ship, currently in our database, we didn't find its specification data, but anyway, we find a similar ship as the specification. Then let's take a little bit look about this voyage. It is a voyage with an average voyage speed of around 16 here, and the total time of the voyage is the cruising day, which means the days at sea are around 3 days something, and the ship also should spend around 10 hours at berth. This is the trajectory here, and we also taken into consideration the IMO's latest CII regulation, which means that most liner operator, they are likely to slow down using the economic speed. So that is why we pick a voyage of average voyage speed, which is around 17. And here, this slide shows a little bit information about the specification data. This ship, she was the similar ship here, which we call the model ship. She was built in 2011 and with a length of around 180, a deadweight tonnage of around 26,000, and also a it is a slow speed engine. And we interpolate the AIS data into 10-minute scale, as shown here. You can see most of the AIS signal time interval is around 10 minutes, which implies quite a relatively good quality of the data. Then let's see the result. How is the emission? In the first bar chart here, it refers to the greenhouse gas emission of traditional fuel, or either turning our ship into a methanol power vessel here. While as shown here, not only as we know in the shipping community, we now, in terms of the greenhouse gas emission, we are talking about the full life cycle emission. And the importance of life cycle assessment here can be kindly shown in this bar chart here. As you can see, if your methanol is made from the fossil, the total emission may be even higher than the traditional fuel. Only when your methanol is what we call a green methanol, you can achieve a carbon reduction. And in terms of the sulfur oxide emission, by turning our ship into methanol, we can see a quite good reduction in terms of sulfur oxide emission compared to even the sulfur cap here, the 0.5 sulfur cap. And the nitrogen oxide emission also quite good. We see around 77% reduction. Well, this is from our assumption that the new methanol engine, they will be in line with the latest IMO Tier 3. They will be in line with the Tier 3 NOx emission regulation. And on the left-hand side here, we also try to estimate the energy demand, as the methanol's energy content is around half of that of traditional fuel. So in terms of the energy demand, it is around double of the traditional fuel. So I think this is the first case study we provide, and I think this is also a very good demonstration of our system and what we are currently doing. Our HKUST team here, we have a shipping emission control and energy estimation system here. Now, originally, we used this system to help monitor and control the shipping emission in Hong Kong, Pearl River Delta, as well as China's coastal region. And with the new development here, we are able to use our system to count the emission as well as the energy demand between, say, 2 ports or 2 cities. And we all see the latest policy adjust, and I think this is policy adjust to make Hong Kong a green bunkering hub and making Hong Kong an international shipping center. And I think this is really what our system can help. And we're also trying to develop a decision support system, which it can also be used to test different policy options here. And since we have this system, we are trying to use our system to support Hong Kong to become a bunkering hub. We still use from the 2021 AIS data. We find all the activity from Hong Kong to other cities. And with an interesting thing here is that we find 2 cities with high energy demand here. And also, we found prospect and the potential of collaboration between ports and cities in Southeast Asia, as well as especially those cities in mainland China. And the interesting thing here is that we found, while for the San Antonio route, Hong Kong to San Antonio route, even we only find 52 voyages, but the total energy demand is even higher than Singapore. Well, we are looking very detailed into it, and we see that in the Hong Kong to San Antonio trip, those container ships are very large compared to the Singapore trip, as well as the average speed is even much higher. Where we are looking very detailed into it. And we find all the activity between Hong Kong and Chile out, as you can see here. Voyage average from 23 to 25 days. You can see clear trajectory between the 2 Hong Kong and cities in Chile. So here comes the second case study here. We find one voyage out still from Hong Kong to Chile. This is a voyage totally around 25 days with 24 days at sea. And also, luckily, we know the information of this ship. She was a ship built on 2015, also a slow-speed engine. And the carbon and the emission reduction result on the right-hand side, well, despite the number is much higher, but I think in terms of the percentage, it is quite similar to the previous study. We say carbon emission higher if it is fossil methanol, while you could have a reduction if it is green methanol. And also here, the reduction in sulfur oxide and the reduction in oxygen. And energy demand still around double compared to the traditional fuel. Despite we can use our data mining approach to find all the activity out there, is also still some uncertainty, so that we have to filter out those data, which means that for each voyage, around 16 data, we have to clean them out. This is due to the, as in the AS data, there are instances of missing data, no perfect data. So we clean them out. And another uncertainty is that because as in the first case, we don't have the specification data, so we have to use our AI model to predict the specification data. While it shows kind of good prediction power, but there is still uncertainty. So we hope to further improve our study and also support Hong Kong to be a international shipping center as well as bunkering center. And to summarize my presentation, firstly, considering the energy content of methanol, we can see that for methanol, its fuel consumption is around double of that of the traditional fuel. And fossil source methanol, you are likely to achieve a higher carbon emission compared to traditional fuel. While methanol, if you use methanol, you can have a 90% decrease in sulfur oxide and about 77% reduction in nitrogen oxide. And given the fuel demand, we see those long-haul shipping corridor which involve large capacity container. Maybe we can focus on these routes and carry out green shipping corridor. And also there could be active cooperation focused on port city in mainland China or East Asia cities. And I think that's all of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jiajing, for your presentation. And I think, as I mentioned, that Jiajing is working on all this data mining to really try to leverage on the AI's data to help to inform us where should, for example, Hong Kong should source the fuel, and also who shall we be providing the fuel for. Because as many of you know, a lot of this shipping decarbonization initiative actually are led by the first movers. And who should be the first movers that Hong Kong should collaborate with? And I think Jiajing's analysis help us to identify which routes and which country or which region we should start talking to them and may possibly engage in further collaboration to drive the usage of methanol. So thank you so much, Jiajing. Our next speaker is from ICCT, Mr. Jihan Meng. As the previous opening remarks have shared with all of you, the Hong Kong plan, ambition to become a green fuel bunkering hub is not only just focusing on methanol, but also a variety of fuels, including LNG, methanol, ammonia. And we talked a lot about LNG before. I think among our maritime stakeholders, there's a lot of new research that has been going into it to make LNG even more climate friendly. So today we are fortunate to have Jihan to help us talk a little bit about the latest development on the methane slip control. But he will also share with us some insights that ICCT have looked into for enabling conditions for other types of fuel, like hydrogen-based fuel, methanol, ammonia, to be really achieving the promised climate benefits. What are the conditions that will allow those fuels to be able to deliver climate results? So without further ado, let us welcome Jihan. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction, Freda. So good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to share some our research about methane slip and some our insight about the enabling condition for renewable fuels. So let's start from a quick background about why we need green fuel or renewable fuel for shipping. I think most of you know about the new greenhouse gas strategy from IMO. So IMO is targeting to get net zero for ocean-going vessels and shipping transportation by 2050. Actually, that ambitious target is not possible for us to achieve just by operation measures. And here is a figure and table that we convert IMO's target, IMO's greenhouse gas reduction target, to the greenhouse gas emission intensity reduction demand of the fuel used by ships. So if we look at the numbers here, I have to say it's a big amount of the greenhouse gas emission intensity of the fuels. By 2030, we have to reduce 18% of the greenhouse gas emission intensity from the fuel, and we only have 6 years remaining to 2030. And by 2040, this amount will increase to 72. And actually, IMO's target is even not that ambitious as a 1.5 degree aligned target in the Paris Agreement. And if we want to achieve a 1.5 aligned target, the greenhouse gas reduction of fuel will be even higher, which is 99% by 2040. So that's why we need use more renewable and low carbon or zero carbon fuels. And I want to discuss a bit more about the methane slip. The reason is LNG ship has been the main choice of alternative fuels over the past decade. And LNG ship actually is still dominate the choice of the alternative fuel in the next few years. So here is a figure about the order book nowadays, about the ships, and these ships will be delivered in the next 3 years. And we'll find nowadays there are around 40% of the ships are going to use alternative fuels. And among these ships, over 85% will still be LNG ships. And beside LNG, methanol seems a main choice in the next few years. However, LNG ships still have a big problem, which is methane slip. Actually, there are 4 types of engines for LNG ships, and nowadays the main choice will be 2 types. First is the low pressure one, LPDF, and another one is a high pressure dual fuel engine, HPDF. So actually, unfortunately, most of the LNG ship will choose to use the most leaky and the most cheapest one. The cheapest one, which is a low pressure engine here, it's most leaky, and it will lead to, so based on the level testing results, it will lead to around 3.5 to 4.5 methane slip. So methane itself is a greenhouse gas emission, and it has much higher global warming potential than CO2. So that's why we need to look at this problem. And here is an estimation about what will happen if we ignore methane slip problem, if we don't control it. So we'll see if under the most ideal condition, if we use the HPDF, which is the least leaky engine, it will lead to, from a life cycle perspective, it can help to reduce around 15% greenhouse gas emissions compared to MGO. So we are talking about fossil LNG here. However, if we use the LPDF, which is most popular, but also the most leaky engine, it will even cannot help to reduce any greenhouse gas emissions. It will lead to additional 8% additional greenhouse gas emissions. And this is under the 100-year GWP. And recent years, the industry and the IMO is talking about we cannot just pay attention to the long-term effect of the greenhouse gas emissions. We should also pay attention to the short term, because it will reflect to our climate change soon. And if we look to 20-year GWP, under the worst case, fossil LNG will lead to like 52% additional greenhouse gas emissions. So that's a big problem from the methane slip. And these numbers are all based on the level test result. And actually the real-world methane slip might be worse than the level test condition. So here's a work we conducted over past 2 years in Europe. We used drone and helicopter to do a remote sensing about the methane emissions of the LNG ships. So we test around 50 LNG ships, mainly bulk and containers. So we just go to the results. So here F4 represents a low pressure 4-stroke engine. And if we look at the numbers here, so averagely the methane slip will be around 6.42%. If you remember the number I showed you in the previous slide, the level test shows like around 3 to 4%. So it's much higher in the real world. And of course, there are some reduction technologies. However, there are some trade-offs. For example, the engine optimization, it cannot help to reduce much of the methane slip. And if we look at direct gas injection, it can help reduce a big amount of methane slip, but it will cost a lot. So that's why we think at least fossil LNG will not be a good option for the future. And here are some enabling conditions for renewable hydrogen-derived fuels. So here is just a quick background about the challenge of these renewable fuels, which is the cost. We will see the cost is much higher than the conventional fuels. And actually, there are some enabling policies coming soon from IMO. So IMO is discussing a measure bucket, including a technical element, which is GFS, which help to reduce greenhouse gas intensity from marine fuel. And another is economic element, which is more like EU ETS, something like that. So EU has actually have this kind of policies. So here it shows that by 2035, all of these fossil fuel, including the MGOs, LNG, cannot comply to EU regulation by that time. And after 2040, only these biofuel and e-fuels or renewable fuel can comply to EU's regulation. And of course, EU is going to cover maritime transportation starting this year to their EU ETS system. Of course, I know that Hong Kong don't have that much routes or connection with EU, but actually the IMO's regulation might quite similar to the EU ones. So here just a timeline about the IMO's regulation. So they are aiming to approve the measure by early next year, and these policies will enter into force by 2027. So this is an enabling condition in the international level. And actually there are some good conditions in China. First is we all know there is a good pilot demonstration about the bunkering of green methanol in Shanghai this year. So it's actually it's a perfect case about that to prove the feasibility of the using green methanol from the production to the transportation to storage and then bunkering in China. And so about the availability of the renewable fuels like green methanol, we will find there are over 100 green methanol production projects in China now, both under planning or under operating. And these projects will have over 50 million tons capacity, which can satisfy a big amount of the demand from the shipping. And also, this year in August, National Energy Administration in China published a new policy which is tackle key problems of green liquid fuel technology, or we will say renewable fuels, and pilot industrialization. They were going to provide loan support and CCER, which is China certified emission reduction support. And beside the fuels, actually, we need some support to the ship side because we need ships that can use these fuels. So yeah, here's the latest policy just published still in August in this year, which is incentive policy in China. So actually, it's not the first time China have such kind of policy. It has a incentive policy by 2015. So at that time, the government is trying to use this kind of policy to encourage the renewal of the existing fleet, to increase the energy efficiency of the fleet. And this time, they publish a new one. First, compared to the previous one, it have a broad coverage. It's providing all the incentive subsidy to all size ships in China. And there is broad coverage for new clean energy. So it's a special definition of the ships using alternative fuels in China. So in the previous one, they only provide additional subsidy to LNG ships, and now they are providing additional subsidy to all these kind of alternative fuel ships. And here's a comparison between the subsidy under nowadays latest one and the previous one. We'll find first, there is a stronger support comparing to the previous. So the solid line here represents the latest one, and the dotted line represents subsidy under the previous one. So we will find like the subsidy to under the latest policy is higher than the previous one, especially for those inland river ships. And we'll find more subsidy to new or clean energy ships. So if we look at this figure, you will find the blue line here represents the subsidy to those alternative fuel ships. It's much higher, almost doubled comparing to the dotted line here, which is under the previous one. So, and lastly, some conclusions. So for LNG ships, LNG's life cycle greenhouse gas reduction potential is limited due to the methane slip issue. And even if we have the methane slip reduction technology with reasonable costs, the fossil-based LNG will not be a final option because under the ideal condition, it can only reduce 15% of the greenhouse gas emissions. And considering the FuelEU Maritime regulations and potential GFS regulation from IMO, ships using fossil LNG cannot comply to the regulations soon. And for the enabling conditions for renewable fuels, we will find there are economic policies and fuel regulations exist or coming soon from IMO. These policies can help enabling the application of renewable fuels, both from international and China domestic perspectives. So that's all I want to share with you today. So if you have any additional questions about these slides, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jihan. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so learning quite a little bit about LNG, but also methanol, ammonia ships, all the subsidies provided by the Chinese government. I think we are now ready to dive into a little bit more about methanol, and today we are very honored to have Mr. Zhao Kai. Mr. Zhao is the go-to person whenever we have any questions about methanol. He's the China Chief Representative of Methanol Institute, and he will tell us a bit more about the development of methanol as a marine fuel, and also a lot about the production and also technology development. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Fred, and this is truly my pleasure to be here and come back again. You know, last year we had a similar workshop with Hong Kong Shipowner Association, and today I hope I do some more work with you. So let me first give you a brief introduction about Methanol Institute. Methanol Institute is a global trade association of methanol industry. It is created 35 years ago in the United States, and today we grow up as truly a global trade association to represent the methanol industry. And today we have 4 offices, which are in Washington, D.C., Beijing, Delhi, and Brussels, and also we are headquartered in Singapore. And Methanol Institute is a member-based association. We are formed by methanol producers, distributors, technology providers, and a lot of end users, including ship owners, are now joined MI. And today we're also delighted to have Maersk to join this workshop. And today we talk about green methanol, and I would like to use this word, renewable methanol, for a more precise description about what we are talking about. Today, methanol is mainly produced from fossil resources, and today you can see that if the methanol produced from natural gas and coal, in the process it generates a lot of emissions, and also when it comes to the end of use, end of life, I mean combustion, it will generate 1375 times of CO2, because the CO2 is more or heavier than methanol itself. And if the methanol is produced from renewable resources, I mean this gray bar it's not counted because it's a renewable fuel. And also, in the same time, there's processes that could generate CO2, but ideally, this process emission is limited. So currently, there's only Europe has the regulation and the standards to approve renewable methanol in different ways. That if it's produced from manure or other biomass based natural resources, it can be called biomethanol. And if it's produced from electrical-based hydrogen, it can be called e-methanol. And this bar is the natural gas in the EU grid on average life cycle emissions. And this bar is the electricity in the EU grid, also in the life cycle basis. And today there are different market renewable methanol, and the most commonly produced one is to use the biomethane from the biodigesters, and the methane is transported in the US grid, and now it can be produced in different facilities in the world, in the US and in Europe. And also last year for the first Maersk container vessels, it was bunkered using the this is called mass balance in the chain of custodies to be produced are called biomethanol. And also earlier this year, this is still a challenge for the methanol producers today, especially for the US. That this year, the European regulators issued a new policy called EU database to regulate all the biofuel producers, not only for biomethanol, but also biofuel producers to get their product registered, not only for the production, but also the feedstock providers and also traders. So in this centralized IT system, all the participants in the ICC, for example, ICC EU certificate holders need to get additional registration to help the EU regulators cross-check the traceability of the biofuel in the future. And also methanol can be produced from other dedicated plants. For example, this one is in Canada, Mountain, that the municipal solid waste can be gasified and produce syngas, then later can be converted into methanol. And also a lot of the waste can be used. For example, this is the forest waste in the pulping industry to produce paper, and a lot of waste can be used to produce biomethanol. And also in China, we have a lot of corn stalks that is used for the potentially for the biomethanol production. And methanol is a hydrogen-rich fuel, and if the hydrogen is produced from renewable electricity via the water split technology, and also the other feedstock is the CO2. And then we call it e-fuel. And in the EU regulation, it's called renewable fuel from a non-bio-origin, RFNBO. And there's also additional requirement from the EU regulators on it. Let's talk about the biomethanol first. So the biomethanol regulation is well documented in the EU RED, Renewable Energy Directive 2 and 3. And also there are a lot of certification schemes in the market. One of the two of the most famous ones are ICC and RSB. So there are two different, major requirements. One is how you can choose your feedstock. For example, like corn stalks in China. So there is a Annex of 9 to tell you that what kind of a feedstock is acceptable. And also we have to pay attention to the total LCA life cycle emission of the total fuel. This is also a life, from a well to wake basis, and the total life cycle emission of the biofuel need to be lower than 39 CO2 equivalent grams per megajoule. And also, today there are a lot of momentum to produce a e-fuel, and especially from the renewable electricities, and this is the last regulation formed last year from the European Commission that if the RFNBO is produced and certified under the EU scheme, that the RFNBO need to be certified by two components. One is your connection of electricity. And there are different scenarios that are regulated by the European policymakers that it can be direct connection or your electrolyzers can be connected to the grid, but need to meet certain requirement. And also there are CO2, as I said, RFNBO, if it's a methanol, you need to react with CO2, like a CCS or CCUS technology. But there are different, classification of CO2 resources, and then definitely industrial-based CO2 is acceptable, but with certain conditions. I will not spend a lot of time on that, but to simplify this definition, and for the projects, EFU projects, especially for e-methanol projects out of Europe, so the simplified version is a direct connection. So your wind and solar needs to be direct connected to your electrolyzer for hydrogen, and also you need to have biogenic CO2 to produce e-methanol. And also, the total life cycle emission need to be below 28.2 grams per megajoule. And from February this year, my institute works with another member, Gender Solutions, on a global database of bio and e-methanol production in the world. And today, you can see that there are around 180 bio and e-methanol projects in the world. And we estimate that if all the projects can be went into the production stage, we'll have around 27 million tons of a production capacity by 2030. And there are different pathways from different feedstocks. And to be noted, China is leading the renewable methanol production in every time, but for the most important is in the short and mid-term, that China could deliver around 2/3 of the global capacity by 2026 or 2027, and to 2030 that there will be a more balanced supply from the world, that China's supply could to be reduced to half of the world. And if we have a deeper analysis of the different phases of the announced project, we will find more challenged supply actually from this number. So if you build any chemical plant, you need a feasibility study, you need engineering, you need to construct your plant and then put it into operational stages. And currently, there are a lot of projects just in the very early stages on the feasibility study or pre-feasibility study, which means that there is a high probability that the methanol plant cannot be commissioned or go into the FID stages. So we also calculated the current stages, and we found out that there are already 14 months delay due to various reasons comparing to the original announcement. So our best estimate that by 2027 the capacity could be only about 88 million tons. And you will see that in the world there will be 3 clusters of renewable methanol production, which are in Europe, China, and America. So let's briefly talk about the marine fuel. As ICCT, my friend introduced, there are EU ETS and FuelEU Maritime to regulate the ship owners for the European market. And one of the most important complying mechanism is called pooling. So your savings in your bunkering fuel on the carbon intensity can be shared in a fuel pool. So for example, this e-methanol in one vessel could help the ship owners to get a compliant according to the FuelEU Maritime for like 70 vessels using the traditional vessels. And today there are over 100 ports today can provide the storage capacity for methanol, and this can be used for the future methanol bunkering. And also there are different complying scenarios also developed by MI. So as we discussed in the FuelEU Maritime, so the target is actually strengthened by every 5 years. So the renewable methanol can be blended with the traditional counterpart together to achieve certain goals. You can see that you can a small amount of renewable methanol can be used to meet the target, and then almost 100% of e-methanol is used to meet the target by 2050. This is one scenario, so methanol with traditional methanol in a methanol blend. And also there are another scenario that all the methanol vessels are dual fuel vessels, and you can just bunker the renewable methanol, and the rest of the fuel is still you use your traditional counterparts like fuel oil. So you need a very small amount of, for example, e-methanol to meet the 2025 next year target, and then increase your blending volume by just using biomethanol or e-methanol. So this gives you a relative idea on how methanol will be used according to the EU regulation, and also for different ship owners like Maersk or other ship owners for the green corridors, they may have different blending strategy and for the different target around, for example, the green corridors. For the ship owners' orders, that there are today more than 300 confirmed orders for methanol-fueled vessels. There are also 100 retrofitted orders, and also there are 400 methanol-ready orders announced, and most of them are actually from the container vessel ship owners. And this is all my presentation. This is the last slide. We have traditionally biomethanol, and also today there are a lot of intention to produce e-methanol from renewable hydrogen, and this is a report we produced with IRENA, International Renewable Energy Agency, that we forecast that by 2050 the global methanol production and consumption could reach 500 million tons per year, and the majority of the supply will be met by the biomethanol and the e-methanol. And with that, I would like to close my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Kai. So I think a major takeaway from what Kai has shared with us is not all methanol are created the same, right? It depends on how it is being produced, what kind of electricity is being used to generate hydrogen, what kind of carbon is being synthesized into producing methanol. So it is not an easy question, and also where to source them. And he highlighted the challenges about the investment that needs to go into. So with all of this, Hong Kong right now is developing a roadmap to develop Hong Kong as a major bunkering hub for all these green fuels. For developing the roadmap, of course, there's a lot of elements that need to be considered. So we are very delighted to invite a number of distinguished speaker panelists to join us for a panel discussion. And we'll have Christine to help us chair this session to talk about how to get the infrastructure ready, and also how to aggregate the demand so that enough of the ship will come over to Hong Kong. Maybe then will be easier, make it easier for us to source methanol, cheaper methanol to provide to the shipping community so that they can transition easier. So may I invite Christine as our moderator, and also Kai again to join us for the panel discussion.
Right. Well, we're very fortunate today because we have quite a number of experts here, and we're going to actually do our discussion in two sections. So to make it slightly easier, I'm just wondering that we have heard some presentations, but we have others who haven't spoken yet, and I'm just wondering whether we can have the others who haven't spoken to share some perspective with us. So who would like to, it doesn't really matter who goes first, but perhaps.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, first, my name is Wen Xuan. I'm from Maersk, and I'm in the China decarbonization team in Maersk. What we're doing is decarbonization in general, but our current focus is really more on the green methanol side, including sourcing and also the in the past 2 years, I think we've been also quite actively working on to activate this market, and we've also signed a deal with Goldwind. I think this is one of the largest green methanol deal being signed globally, with 500,000 ton per annum expected to be delivered in 2026. It is a long-term contract. I think with this, Maersk is really trying to, solve the chicken and egg problem. To activate this market, you really have to send very clear signal that there is some company willing to take the risk, willing to fulfill their responsibilities. By ordering, first we ordered a number of methanol vessels, right, and then we signed deals on green fuel supply. I think that being said, I think Maersk is really on track to become net zero by 2040, and also we have a midterm target by 2030 is about 25% of our cargoes will be transported by green fuel. I think that's a general introduction of me and also the team and Maersk as a company.
Well, I think my understanding of Maersk is, of course, a very major shipping company in the world in container shipments. So what you're sharing with us, and of course, I think the market took note of all of this, is first of all, you ordered ships, and then you now have long-term contracts for methanol. So in a way, this has kind of helped to stir up the whole market. And what is driving you reminded us, is your company has set certain targets that you aim to reach in a relatively short time. So perhaps I can invite the next speaker to share some perspective with us.
Hi, I'm Deepak. I used to work for Methanex for 17 years until July. I used to lead the global team to promote methanol as a fuel. I've known Kai for over 15 years as well. The fuel journey for methanol started a couple of decades ago in China. Used to blend with gasoline and diesel for road transportation. And 10 years ago, when we were in the process of ordering new ships for Methanex, we had an interesting discussion with our shipping partners, including Fleet here and MAN and all the technology providers. And what happened was the first order of the first generation methanol dual fuel engines, and we doubled up as a methanol producer with a second generation of another order, and then a third generation subsequently in 2018. So we totally have about 19 vessels running on methanol dual fuels today. Probably we burn about 40 to 50,000 tons of methanol as fuel every year, and we've been sharing that experience and evangelizing methanol as a low carbon fuel, green fuel, and also low pollutant fuel, as you saw from ICCT's presentation, very low SOx and NOx for a number of years. I think there was for much of the last 10 years, it was mainly Methanex and one of our other competitors, Proman, who had ordered the ships. And the big interest came when Maersk did the announcement. Maersk being a very reputable, high-brand shipping company, and also from a very big segment, a container ship. Once Maersk announced, the world started noticing methanol as a fuel. And fast forward, as you see from Kai's presentation, there are about 300 vessels which are on order. If all these vessels were to run on methanol, that would be about 10 million tons in demand at least. And we know not everyone will run on methanol all the time, because mainly economic issues. It's not that it cannot be bunkered or cannot be used 100% of the time. It's just too expensive to produce. So what's the effort now with the company like methanol producers and others in the industry is the focus has moved to how to bring on this supply cost effectively to the market. And it requires collaboration among the customers like Maersk and other shipping companies, among the producers, among renewable energy companies like Goldwind, capital providers, the banks, etc. And most importantly, the regulators, setting the right price for the CO2, helping companies to adopt it in the future. And how do companies or regions like Hong Kong play a pivotal role in enabling this bunkering infrastructure or supplying the fuel or enabling the ships to adopt more and more green fuels? That's a brief introduction and look forward for the questions.
Right, because I guess for any port, right, we're obviously focusing on Hong Kong here right now, but for any port, there are all these aspects that you have to line up. And in a way, who is ready to kind of set standards and have regulations and so on? But perhaps the next speaker, you have invested in, in both aviation fuels and shipping, in green shipping fuels. A brave start. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Professor. My name is Sham. I'm coming from a local gas company, the Hong Kong and China Gas Company, and we are very young, in this industry, in particular in front of those giants players like Methane, like Maersk, but we are quite brave. In terms of embarking on transforming our company into a low carbon energy provider. And Professor just mentioned that we are also producing SAF for the aviation customers, and we start on the marine fuel, that is the green methanol, just very recently, and we start our green methanol project in late 2021, and then we are able to provide a meaningful volume right now, around 100 KT of green methanol in terms of ICC plus and EU, and then we have some grand plan. We are a Hong Kong-based company. We would like to expand our capacity. We are now producing in northern China, and very soon we will have capacity in the Greater Bay Area, and we hope we can bring that green energy to support the development of Hong Kong ports, and also for other companies, they would like to bring their regular wood to Wharfu, Hong Kong, if we can offer the green fuel here. So that's all the purpose. I would like to come to this forum and then listen, learn, and then perhaps have some opportunity to be explored. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think in the interest of full disclosure, I actually sit on one of the companies of Town Gas, mainly the mainland side. But I mean, obviously, I think what you've shared with us is being a Hong Kong company, whilst of course your fuels could be sold anywhere, but you would like Hong Kong to be able to play a role in that. Okay, so maybe we can also have some perspective from you, sir.
So we all are sitting here today, Christine, thank you, to talk about green methanol. There's a long way we have come, so I'll take 2 minutes to talk about it. So we are one of the largest chemical tanker operator in the world today, and we have been carrying methanol from long. But 2009, we made first time charter agreement with Methanex to carry methanol for them, and then we moved on to more than 6 vessels were carrying Methanex cargo. In 2012 and 13, Methanex, actually, I'll not say it's MAN, but Methanex pushed for this idea of using methanol on the marine engine. And Marine West was one of their largest partners those days. They had 14 ships from Sweden, and there was Frederick Stubner, who was the technical director. They, together with Paul, I believe, started thinking about methanol as engine. Frederick was at Sweden, Gothenburg, and Copenhagen, very close, he can drive down. And then, I think 2014, MN agreed to start single-cylinder trial. And that was, methanol was considered toxic. And in Copenhagen, in the center of the city, you are going to try that. They made a special enclosure to do this testing. And that is how now you see methanol engine, and now you want to burn green methanol. But to go to green methanol, first methanol has to become a fuel, which phased through, as Deepak said, phase 1 engine, tier 2 engine, and now tier 3 engine, with a lot of struggle, together with MAN, very good support from Methanex and the owners. Now we can say today, like MEGI engine of LNG, methanol is one of the most stable engine right now from MAN. We are running LNG dual fuel, we are running LPG dual fuel, which will be the way forward for ammonia and methanol, all three. Methanol is one of the best to handle, and we developed the way forward for the training requirements. What are the training? There was no regulation. Way back in 2016, when first ship came in, it was only Norwegian flag and the ship owner. Nobody else, no rules. Flag made the rules, only one flag. The actual rules started coming in from 2020 December, when methanol was accepted as the fuel. And now we are talking, we are also happy for a better future, greener future with green methanol. We have challenges in production and the cost, which will take over slowly, but that is the journey of methanol as fuel in marine industry. We started it with Methanex and MAN.
Right. I think you have a longer way of looking than many other people. When people were not even focusing on all of this, you were already thinking about possibilities. So I'm actually wondering, you've studied this kind of situation quite deeply. Having heard the other, the other speakers here and also the previous presentations, I'm sure you have some kind of overall thoughts and insights for us.
Yeah, actually, I prepared, what's my recommendations for Hong Kong. I think today, a lot of, leading ports are now moving methanol really ahead, namely Shanghai and Singapore, and a lot of ports in Europe. And I'm thinking that first we need investment in the infrastructure. And currently, methanol storage is different from marine fuel or diesel. So we need a floating roof. So it's different from a traditional fuel, and we need more storage space. And also, particularly in China, it's building a methanol bunkering barge. So this is required by the local regulation. But in the world, there are, bunkering via the chemical tankers. So if the Hong Kong government could approve this chemical bunker barging, so this could be another benefit, and this is very convenient. And also we need to think about invest in people's knowledge and skills. And today we are short of knowledge about accommodating any new fuels like methanol is the first, and maybe later, a few years later, for ammonia. So we need to train our staff both on the bank and also on the vessel. And in the longer term, I think if Hong Kong is really looking at to boost a maritime green hub, and we need to invest in upstream. As I introduced before, that although there are a lot of announcements on the renewable methanol, but I'm 80% of them are actually in the early stages. That maybe 50% will not go into FID and then into the final construction. So a lot of project is lacking of financing. So why not Hong Kong, like a green and in the and now a financing hub in Asia that could help the investment and also the bridging between the producers and the ship owners like Maersk, so they can sign offtake agreement, so we can really move forward all those projects into the real world and for Hong Kong.
Right. Well, I just want to check on time, because I know we wanted to catch up a little bit on time. So how much longer would you like us to continue? Till what time? Because we'll have a chance to ask maybe the audience for some questions. So how much longer do I have? Right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So for these speakers, I wonder if anybody has any questions or any comments you'd like to make to them. Tell us who you are, and then please ask your question. Thank you.
This is Srijib Saha. I am from Sarvaitik, one of the leading safety company worldwide. When we were talking about the methanol, as we see that green methanol and the normal methanol have different CO2 emissions level. So that means there is some difference in composition in the methanol, which we need to take into understanding. And when we see that there we can mix the methanol over a period of 2030, 2050, which different perspective, which we can mix the ratio to get the emissions. So that means we are mixing some chemical compositions to get the emissions, that is the final, but in between there may be some internal reactions. Have we taken into consideration?
I'll take that as handling methanol, conventional methanol in tens of millions of tons. The intention is to produce renewable methanol to the same specification as conventional methanol. So what we call IMPCI methanol. The standard is called IMPCI methanol. The main reason for that is interoperability. As we know, the worldwide, the methanol, conventional methanol consumption is about 100 million tons. And the infrastructure is built to use that. So if we produce green methanol to the same specification, we can use the same tanks, same pipelines, same ships to transport. And whatever we produce, green methanol or conventional methanol, the end product exactly the same, molecule to molecule. It's basically will look water in this cup to water in that cup, and it can mix without any chemical issues. That's the whole intention of the industry, to produce to one spec. And the mixing would be based on your CO2 profile requirements. If you want to reduce by 5%, you produce 5% green methanol mixed with 95% conventional methanol. It becomes very simple. So there will be no issues from product degradation because of the intermingling. What the shippers can also do, they can procure the fuel separately. They can procure conventional fuel separately and the green fuel separately for traceability. So the green fuel will always comes with a certification traceability. The conventional fuel flows into separate product lines, and on the ship, in the tank, they will mix without any problems. Hopefully that answers the question.
So basically, I mean, for me, I not so good about the chemicals and all the mixing and so on. But basically, what I'm hearing from you is further down the road, there shouldn't be any more questions about how the thing is mixed, right? It will just become a commodity. Because if we were looking at EU and other people, you know, how you make it and so on is still people setting standards and so on. At what stage do you think we will no longer be worrying about that?
I think at least from the industry side, including MI, we've been advocating that we all produce to a single spec so that it trades freely and there are no issues when it's applied to the customer. So that is at least the intention today. And whatever green methanol is sold today is also sold at the conventional fuel spec. So the journey has begun that way. So hopefully we can continue in that way so that there's no hiccups in the future as well.
But even today, if we're looking at where it is sourced, so, you know, we saw that obviously China, you know, Asia has some, Europe and US, they are producing things now. But today, the methodology is already very similar?
Yes, very similar. Yeah, very, very standardized and established.
Okay. Any other questions? Please.
Hello, I'm Venkat. I'm from Anglo-Eastern Shipping Company. So we know that pure methanol is very corrosive, right? And when we talk about green methanol and the composition that which we use, like how is the corrosive property taken into account while running the engines basically? Like one part is the material that which we use. Other than that, for storing and lot many things, the corrosive nature of the fuel itself, like how it is being addressed? Has it come down with different mixing ratios? Your thoughts on that, please.
Yes,
As far as I know,
yes.
there is no change in chemical properties, green or gray or blue. It has same chemical properties. So the storage is same. So today, as we are storing the methanol, the green methanol is stored the same way. And same double wall pipes, complete main engine components are completely compatible with green and blue or gray methanol. What we have done additional to, we are talking about mixing green and gray methanol, we have chemical tankers, which one voyage carry petroleum, next voyage carry methanol. And we are cleaning the tanks by methanol. When we are preparing the tank from CPP to methanol, we are cleaning it by methanol. That mixes with CPP, and that CPP mixed with methanol, we are consuming in main engine. Up to 10% we have mixed. That's the cleaning. There is no slop discharge. There is no slop generated. All tanks are sealed. There is no tank entry. There is no valve test. So we clean by methanol, and all methanol we burn in the engine, and we have mixed up to 10% with MGO and methanol with no problem on the main engine. Together with MA, and we have done this.
Could I just take all the other questions that are there, which will take more than 5 minutes, but at least I think it would be good to hear all your questions first.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Christine. So this is Gautam Lahiri from ABS. So my question to Deepak and the MI representative here. So, you know, when you speak about one spec methanol, now going back to the regulatory side of things, as you probably be aware that, you know, it's either a green methanol or it's basically there's no credit for an alternate fuel in terms of methanol. So when you talk about mixing different types of methanol, I'm not so sure. Are we talking about blending methanol here? Because, you know, as far as blending is concerned, the only credit that you get is for the fossil fuel and the biofuel blends. So can you just clarify on that, please?
Another, I think there was a question over there, and then a follow-up question at the back.
Hello, this is Stephanie from ExxonMobil. So I'm just back from SIPCon like last week. Let me explain a little bit situation like Singapore port. All the hardwares are ready, and they are still talking about MFM 2.0 and then EBDN and so on, and also setting the standard, the safety standard of like green methanol bunkering and so on. As you can see, like Singapore is already like quite prepared for the green fuel bunkering service. But let's come back to Hong Kong. As a Hong Kong citizen, I'm very concerned about the development of all this, because our government, they are from the policy address, they are emphasizing that, our port gonna be a green fuel port, but we are still just at the stage exploring the possibility. So all we know that to make this happen, we need to set up a very good value chain from the upstream to the downstream, from the state safety standards. So my question will be quite long for all of you. Like, what should be done, like for Hong Kong to prepare, like green methanol bunkering? Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to take that question when we have the other speakers up as well. I think there was a follow-up question. I'll let you ask that question before we carry on.
Thank you. I just want to highlight the other side of the methanol when we are talking only for the environment side. We have seen an increase in number of ships which are ordering with the methanol engines. But at the same time, recently, if you are aware that there is a MSC Circular 1621, which is talking about the safeties or the extinguishing medium things to be done for these low flashpoint fuels, because methanol has a flashpoint of 11 degrees centigrade. So in that aspect, the MSC Circular 1621 do not specify the requirement clearly about the CO2 system in the engine room or water mist system which is normally used presently. So as an ambiguity in the circular, people tend to use the existing water mist system and the CO2 system, which may not be helpful in fighting the methanol fire. In that aspect, are we doing, or the industry, are we thinking for anything? Because since we have seen the increase in the number of ships already in the market, Maersk is a pioneer with the Laura Maersk, which delivered in August. We are basically jeopardizing the life of people on board.
I understand the question, right?
Yes,
the safety.
please.
May I invite the other two speakers to come and join us here? So I think what I'd like to do is maybe split up our discussion in the way that the panelists may like to discuss them. I think the first one is there are some questions still about the technology, the mixing, the safety of methanol. So that's one range of question. The other range of question has to do with what does Hong Kong really have to do to catch up? And I think our panel here have certain views. And lastly, of course, no one has brought up the question of cost. How important at this stage, right, when we're all trying to transition, how important is the cost factor? And how do you think governments and industry are really thinking about cost? So perhaps I can go straight to Martin and Roberto first, and hear some reflections from you from what has been said so far. Roberto, you go first.
Okay, yes, thank you. No, very interesting. I have appreciated the input, what we've heard. I think that a lot of people in the room might be like me. We're not the geeks. We're not the techies. And we're in the commercial world. And so once I wanted to just touch on then this point, what is it that we need to do and how does it look from a pricing perspective? Shipping, we know, contributes 3% of global GHGs. Yeah, and we realize from a shipping industry that this needs to be addressed. 3% is not that much, but it is something that we need to take into consideration. So actually, from the container liner side, a lot is being done. We're building more ships than ever before, a lot of them being green. But truth be known, there are a number of vessels that are already in the water, hundreds of vessels, that are green fuel capable, but they're not using green fuel. And the reason is the price is just not there. The price of the green fuel is 4 times what the traditional fuel is. Even if the ships were to be able to use that, the market would not be able to bear that price difference. So what we need to do is narrow the gap between traditional fossil fuel and green fuel. And the way we know that the IMO is working on that. We know that they have some initiatives, but those are not going to come in for a few years. We know that in Europe they have the ETS. We know the FuelEU, but that only applies for vessels that are covering Europe. A lot of those vessels that cover Europe don't come to Hong Kong. Hong Kong traditionally is focused. Our vessels come. Are intra-Asia, Latin America, some trans-Pacific, to push this barrier from a local perspective. What I say is we need to come up with an initiative where we can see the reduction of the price gap, and that would be a fee for fossil fuel users or a discount for vessels that come in that are green. This discount could be applied for shippers that want to use green, move their cargo on green vessels in Hong Kong. It could be terminals that bring the green vessels in. I'm not saying that it has to be the shipping lines, but we need some way to incentivize the production of green fuel. and drive up the demand. And I think once we do that, we will start to see more of these vessels that are green capable moving through Hong Kong. Now, what I'm talking about is not something that would apply only for Hong Kong, because if we did it by ourselves, we would be placing ourselves out of the market. We would need to do it in collaboration with other competitor ports, other regional ports. And so this would need to be an initiative from the government to be able to put this across. I would also do it in the reverse. If other ports do start this and Hong Kong doesn't, we would again be putting ourselves in a disadvantageous commercial position. And mind you, Shenzhen already has a plan to start to provide this type of incentive for green ships. So if we don't move in Hong Kong, we will lose this market. Hong Kong has an advantage and a disadvantage in respect to the comment made by Exxon that we don't have a top-down government. But this can also be an advantage because what we have in the room are all the stakeholders. We have the producers, we have the suppliers, the transport, the carriers, the terminals. Everybody is here. We can make a decision. We can discuss what is it going to look like and then raise this up to the government. And government is always happy to support us, to enable us to do this. This needs to be a bottom-up approach. And I think this is the intention of what we're talking about today. One of the things that I think everybody in the room is wondering is how about demand? What is demand going to look like? What is the price? How much volume are we talking about? Now, I went to Cat Street in Shenyang and looked for a crystal ball, found some, but none of them worked. And I think there's a lot of analysis, a lot of figures out there that are just guesstimates. We have no idea what the price is going to be like, the supply. And even if we have the supply, is shipping going to get that fuel? I know that Hong Kong Airport Authority has some type of agreement. I don't know, maybe a nod from the government that they will have the SAF. Now, are we going to be able to have that same commitment for the maritime industry? I don't know. In order for us to be able to do this, what we need to do is have an idea of what the volume is going to be like. So I'll throw out some numbers. We know that there was actually a very good study done by Lloyd's Registry Maritime Decarbonization Hub. And they said in Singapore there's 359 vessels that are bunkering there. And they have collectively require 2.9 million tons of fuel equivalent oil. They have a projection that this will grow for green methanol up to 3 million tons by 2030. Hong Kong to Singapore ratio for bunkering is about 1 to 10. So we bunker about 10% of what Singapore does. So if Singapore were to have 3 million tons by 2030, we could say maybe Hong Kong would have 300,000 K. This is just a guess. Another guess would be that we look at today's bunkering in Hong Kong. We have about 5.6 million tons in 2023. We saw the first part of 2024 that this was already increased by 8%. But let's take a very conservative figure and say 5 million tons is the current bunkering level. Under IMO guideline by 2030, they're going to have a 5 to 10% requirement for burning green fuel. So if we use that and we take the conversion factor between fossil fuel to methanol, we would be able to say that very roughly, we might have 750,000 tons demand in Hong Kong. So from 300 to 750,000 tons, I'm going to say that our number is somewhere in there. Now, what does that mean? That is not enough of a business model for somebody to invest in green fuel in Hong Kong if it is only for bunkering. We need something else, and I believe what we need is to use Hong Kong as a trading hub for green fuels. Now, if we have the financial institution and the investment opportunities that there are in Hong Kong, the rule of law that we have in Hong Kong, the monetary system, we have the perfect place, the perfect environment to use Hong Kong as a trading hub. That's something, an opportunity that most other ports in the world do not have. And I think that if we had Hong Kong as a local, as a global trading hub for green fuel, we would have that green fuel here. And then the 300,000 or 750,000 tons fuel, we would have that. So maybe that's where I can ask Martin if
Can I press you on this a bit? Because it's interesting. Can we go back to the, yes, this one. Now, Singapore is by far the largest bunkering port because it is also the regional oil trading and oil refining center. And that is based on the fact that we're on current fossil fuels, right? You know, we have a standardized product for marine fuels. So if you look down and you see that the difference between Singapore and the others are actually very large. So it seems that if Hong Kong were to be a trader, then you don't have to have the fuels here. But Singapore is a better place for fuels trading because they already trade fuels. What I'm saying is Hong Kong is not a fuel trading center. However, if Hong Kong could be a fuel trading center for green marine fuels, what really would be the conditions? I mean, you know, okay, so we have some people in Hong Kong who are owners of that fuel. So the owners of that fuel will be able to perhaps work with the authorities here and whatnot and, you know, want to trade it here. That's one possibility. But on the basis that if you're trading it, you know, we can also bring it to Hong Kong, but we need, I think, all the infrastructure and things that you've all been talking about. So I think going towards the trading and physical bunkering, there has to be a vision there, right? And then I think the liners, you represent the liners and their container vessels, which are different from, again, the vessels that goes to Singapore. So perhaps I can ask the ship owners, the Hong Kong Ship Owners Association, your members' ships go all around the world. Some of them don't even come to Hong Kong. So what is your perspective?
Well, that's quite. But actually, Hong Kong actually is importing about 16.5 million tons of fuel a year, roughly split between aviation fuel, about 6, and bunker fuel for ships, which is about 5.5 million tons. To bring these fuels in here, we've got about 450 tankers a year bringing the fuel in. Basically from the bunker fuel's coming from Singapore, the aviation fuel's mostly coming from China. So all these ships bringing fuel here, and then they're basically going back empty. So there is a possibility here that if actually we could become a green fuel hub, these ships could actually backhaul this fuel. And Singapore, as we can see, is the world's largest bunkering port. They're importing fuel, crude oil from the Middle East, basically for their fossil fuel at the moment, which they're converting in their refineries. But the green fuel has got to be brought there. Singapore doesn't create any green fuel. So if China is a very large manufacturer of green fuels, somehow if we could get it to just get it to Hong Kong, store it, use these tankers on a backhaul route to Singapore, that would be a good solution. But of course, it's got to be market driven. It's got to be, no one's going to carry it for nothing. I mean, you've got to carry it for something. So it all really depends on costs, what the end result is going to be, how much the demand is going to be, as Roberto has just mentioned. So.
Right. So is there a China advantage for Hong Kong? I think that's what we're trying to explore. Any comments from the others? Yes, please.
As you said, from Singapore, when we were for some company bringing bunker, it used to be heavy oil. From Singapore, it's coming heavy oil to Hong Kong. Yeah, heavy oil. And heavy oil tanks, if you want to clean to methanol, I would say impossible. CPP we are cleaning, we take sometime 8 to 10 days to clean the tank. Even when we are doing it with methanol, still we take 8 to 10 days. If you are doing not with methanol, it's difficult. So that is the problem, that the all coming there is heavy oil.
But what I said was there's 450 tankers a year. We're not just talking about the ships that are bringing in the fuel oil for ships. We've also got the aviation tankers bringing in aviation fuel, and a lot of those are chemical tankers, clean tankers. Those will be much easier to clean than your ships that we're talking about.
I'm not well. But what is happening in the industry, because we are working with Methanex, which is doing the same thing. We are loading methanol in, say, Caribbean at Trinidad. We are bringing all the way to China and Korea. And then we are loading from here CPP and taking it back to Peru, Chile, or back to Trinidad. But nobody is doing it in fuel oil. So if it's CPP, it is possible. That's one thing. Second thing I wanted to say was, from the, as for the Singapore perspective, they have taken a big lead. You know, they started for ammonia, they started 2021. But when they started with government is there, ship owners are there, who gave a commitment. You know, like Maersk gave a commitment that we will give you 16 ships for making Singapore as hub for ammonia bunkering. The commitment was from also government and also from the ship owners industry, which helped them. And now 3 years, you know, they are the leading country which are developing the rules for ammonia. Same way, methanol. Our vessel was the first vessel supposed to bunker at Singapore. And that time MPA did not have the rule, any regulation. They say, no, you cannot bunker methanol in Singapore. We had to bring vessel to Korea, and we did the bunkering at Korea for methanol. But within 6 months, you know, I have been working with MPA very closely. Within 6 months, all rules are in place. You know, that is how fast they work. They went out to industry. There are another operator like us who are handling methanol and doing methanol dual fuel vessel in Singapore. Together, very fast. Whereas I see in Hong Kong, we started LNG way forward bunkering only 1 year back. And now I think the task team is working to make the way forward. But Hong Kong, not for methanol facility, but we are a little bit behind in making the rules and setting the way forward to welcome the greener fuels. It will happen not today, maybe 5 years later. It has to come. And the government has prepared now, because it takes a lot of time to study. Government moves slow everywhere. It takes time. So we have to start in Hong Kong, and we need the owners' support as well.
No, just to answer to Christine's question, yeah, I think we certainly need to take advantage being close to China. There will be probably 2 manufacturing hubs of green methanol. Let's say one is the northern region where Dalian or Tianjin will be the aggregation point. For the southern part, it's still not determined yet where will be the aggregation happening. Like we have innovative companies like Town Gas will expand in GBA areas, can be a launch pad for the expansion. That's an advantage. We saw from the AIS data shared by HKUST, there are certain routes like Hong Kong, Latin America, which could be our advantage for bunkering from a bunkering perspective. And the backhaul, the trade Martin mentioned here, using as a trading hub. I think there are different pieces that needs to work together to make it as a hub. And it's still top 5 port. So that's an advantage in South China, right? We have Shenzhen, we have Yantai as competitive ports, but they're not big bunkering ports. Hong Kong has the ecosystem of bunkering here. It includes finance, it includes shipping companies, rule of law, infrastructure. Methanol is simple. It can convert a lot of existing infrastructure, be it using chemical tankers to do bunkering, converting diesel tanks to methanol tanks with modification. That should be the fastest way. Singapore was the slowest on methanol, to be honest. When you compare Rotterdam, Busan, and Singapore, the Korean register approved methanol in 3 months. Because there's an infrastructure there, they knew it's safe to handle by small conversions, putting extra safety measures. So regulations should be low, which Hong Kong is always usually. They try to not make it regulatory heavy. So if they keep it to that principle, use all the advantages of the existing bunkering infrastructure in the region and the industry, I think Hong Kong can transform and use the China advantage. Hong Kong can transform. Though it will start late, there is time to catch up. The main demand will probably come 27, 2028, and we have probably 2 years to catch up to that. And with the policy in effect, I think we are able to catch up to that.
Okay, well, that's positive to hear. Mr. Shum, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just would like to add a very premature idea. Being a producer, I think for green methanol, actually, we are delivering the value in two parts. One is the energy, of course, and then you need energy to power your ship. Another one is the carbon intensity value. So you have to ensure two things. First of all, the audience there, the gentleman, worry about the specification, but actually it's very simple. It's the same, exactly the same molecule we are using, no matter it's gray or green. So that doesn't matter. I mean, that is for sure. However, for the GG intensity, there's something that is something like some invisible value you have to ensure, and then you put forward together with your cargo to the customer. Hong Kong being a port used to be quite successful and getting less and less the turnover, I mean, in terms of the volume. However, as a trading platform, we still have all the advantages. For example, when we are selling green methanol, we have to also deliver the so-called certified value, no matter it's ICC or whatever other system, or you have to live up to the requirement of EU ETS Maritime or IMO, and then you have to have a piece of paper that certify your value. I think Hong Kong, together with the legal system, the governance of the enterprise here, and also we have some new technology like the fintech technology, is that worthwhile to compose everything together to make sure the transfer of custody, not only the physical one, but also the GG premium that come together with the cargo. And then I think being a trading hub is much more than what we physically deliver the product. We also deliver the value that the actual user wanted to be a real and genuine one for their calculation. Yeah.
Right. Actually, I was going to ask you whether the certification system, the global certification system, is it ready? Is it settled?
Yeah, so I have two comments. So for the first one, for the value chain, that my comment is let's think out of the box. So if we can, all the Hong Kong companies, can invest in upstream, like there are around 100 projects in China, and as I said, there are 80% of them are in the early stages, and maybe 50% of them will be not have enough funding to go forward. So if Hong Kong companies can invest, so certainly you have the offtake rights or ownership of the one project. So you are the owner of the renewable methanol in the future. So whether or not you can just bunker in Hong Kong, or this is like free commodities, and definitely in the future renewable methanol will be distributed everywhere in the world. And certainly if you are owner, you can enjoy a certain share of a margin in that. So today we have a very good example is Hong Kong Tongas. They own a project in China that if you can deliver the real methanol into Hong Kong, and also we have China Resources. They are exploring opportunities in China, and they can also move the methanol back to Hong Kong. So let's think about the bigger picture, own the projects first. So the second one is about the traceability and the certification. So globally there are certification schemes, but they are all originated from Europe. They are worldwide. So for example, all the Chinese projects, they are certified by ICC or ISB for the biofuel, biodiesel or biomethanol. There are around a dozen of such a certification scheme. And for RFNBO, there are regulations, and now 3 certification schemes have been approved by the European Union. There are ICC, RSB, and the German Hydrogen Bank. So in the future, I do expect that there will be more certification scheme from other continents, for example, like China, maybe Singapore, Hong Kong. We have all the similar certification schemes, but slightly different on the process, but the methodology the same, but the people are different. We can achieve the same goal in IMO level.
Well, I think that's very important for the investors, right? Just to make sure that the certification and so on, the standards will be acceptable. I mean, the ship, that's carrying this fuel and going off to Europe, you don't want them to say, well, I don't think you're made in the way that we approve, right? Just want to make sure that those things will be ironed out. Any other comments to share?
Yeah,
Please.
I think in the beginning you mentioned about the price. I think this is the fundamental of what we've been talking about. This is the foundation. As of today, I think you also mentioned the green methanol is still expensive, even if we're considering already quite cost competitive project in China. Is still significantly more expensive than conventional fuels. So we really need to have some sort of a policy from IMO to promote the adoption of green fuels. And I think basically there are several, no matter which, which proposal will eventually get attraction. I think there are several basic elements should be there. I think the very first one is really the fee-based. The fossil fuel users, they need to pay something, and the green fuel adopters, they should be incentivized. And I think this is. I'm very happy that in the past several rounds of MEPC meetings, I think there is at least some common ground for among different countries. I think that this is quite good, and only by this means it is possible that we, elaborate what should be going on next. Otherwise, this market is very hard for this market. For the time being, it's very hard for this market to be sustaining by itself. We really need some forces from IMO, from policymakers. And I think if eventually IMO published some policies, like if the green fuel adopters should be incentivized, and then perhaps there will be some new certification schemes need to be coming out, because we have been always talking about ICC EU or FuelEU Maritime. This is European laws, but once IMO publishes something, it will become international. Maybe I think EU has set a very good example to the international community.
Can I just clarify on this? And it may be my own misunderstanding. For aviation, under ICAO, I think there are some targets for blending in SAF into fuels. And then I think the EU has also said, flights going into the EU, there are certain minimum blending of SAF. Now, with shipping, I think IMO has kind of talked in terms of the emissions, not so much the blending of fuel. Is that correct? Because I'm just thinking, what are the different ways you can kind of get there?
The target is the same. So for ICAO and IMO, the final target is to net zero emission by 2050. So the differences.
More near term, right?
The differences are actually how you achieve that target. Yeah. So for maritime sector, so there are different choices. Like for outer fuels, there are methanol, biofuel, ammonia, and maybe hydrogen in the future. So you cannot just by a simple calculation of how much renewable fuel added, because different fuel has different carbon intensity. But for the aviation industry, so the simple answer is to use SAF. So you can just simply to calculate your addition, you are blending more and more so you can achieve that target. So basically, it's the same idea, but calculated in different way.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think the IMO is doing a lot, but what I believe is that we should not wait for the IMO. From a Hong Kong perspective, Hong Kong actually was an early mover when it came to containerization. And we rode that wave for a long time. Number one ports in the world. It was inevitable that we would that would pass to China as the infrastructure grew there. But here we have an opportunity. As an early mover, if Hong Kong and the region, South China, we were to put something in that enabled the price differential to narrow ahead of IMO, we would have a huge opportunity. The fuel is being produced in China. It would have to be loaded on a China port to go to Singapore for them to be able to bunker. It would have to, for the rest of the world, they're not going to be able to meet the demand. And I think Kai's presentation said that 2/3 of the global production is going to be in China in the short future. I think that now is the opportunity. Hong Kong needs to be a first mover in setting the pace. And I think that we need to do by having this fee or discount, whatever we want to call it, to incentivize green production.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's any questions out there, and then we're going to round off. But the round off question for each one of you to have a go is, the government is going to revamp the port body, right? And the policy address tells us that this revamped body is going to have a much heavier component of the shipping sector. And I guess an important point is what pathway will you recommend to the Hong Kong government to do, as Roberto has suggested? So I'm going to ask each one of you to round off at the end, but let me see if there's any questions out there. Yes, in front and then at the back, please.
Great, thanks. This has been really great and useful. This question, I think, is for Shan or Kai, but I'm curious how much room you see there for learning and scaling of green methanol to bring down the cost. Because, of course, now we see the cost difference is so big. I'm assuming we expect that to come down, but as I've heard from others that actually the bunkering is fairly mature, the use of methanol is mature, so maybe there's not a lot of room there to bring down the costs. But upstream, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Upstream cost. Well, Sham, this is what you want, right? You want your investments to
yes.
drive down the cost.
Yeah, I love that question. Anyway, I would like first of all, I would like to have more producer. To make everything more available, for the downstream, there is the ship liner to consider. So cost seems to be a hurdle, right? But closing the gap of the cost, and we have just mentioned, and perhaps maybe now the fossil fuel is too cheap. Some external cost hasn't been accounted for. But anyway, full IMO and EU Maritime, we should level down a bit of that. But the fundamental is that is still quite costly, producing the biomethanol or further future, the e-methanol, okay? So something that is quite interesting is that biomethanol, for example, that's what we are working on, that pretty much depend on the resources. Unlike those fossil fuel, once you have an oil field and then you can wait for a while until that the market suit your economic model or scale, and then you just take it out. But for biomass, there is something that occurs every day. The plant has to go and something like this, so you have to collect that in time, and that the cost shouldn't be too much a controllable fashion, for the producer. But one thing is very important is the stability. And then once we have a very stable demand, and then we can work all the way up to the upstream for the collection, and then work with the local community to collect everything. So first of all, there is a very foreseeable demand, and then for the upstream, then we can plan for everything, and then we can have a more committed demand for the collectors, such that we can control the cost to a reasonable level. And then later on that the economy of scale kicks in when we have the demand, and then we can plan for a bigger capacity. And then later on with the technology advancement, like we would have a hybrid system using the e-hydrogen to come into the gasification technology, and then we can maximize the use of the biogenic carbon. And then all the costs can be driven down in a way, in a technical perspective, as well as in the economic perspective. I think both ends we should work together, and we have to have a sharp learning curve, but we have to live with a little bit higher cost, and people get into the game, and then we can expect a more favorable future for everyone. As I mentioned, if the IMO or EU ETS Maritime, the tax level that truly reflect the external cost of those fossil alternative, and then we have the economy of scale, and then we have the technology advancement, I would say the future cost difference will be substantially reduced in a way that people were willing to pay a little bit more. People have to pay a little bit more. We cannot simply saying that it must be the same as a fossil fuel. So people are willing to pay a little bit more for the sustainability. I think that is the essence. So.
Presumably, you have lots of people calling you up every day on these issues right now, right?
So, yes.
He's very, very busy right now.
Just to add to one on the economic of scales, the simple way I used to explain in forums was, you take organic food a couple of decades ago. It was very niche. Organic food was very high priced. You wouldn't find it every supermarket. 2 decades later, it's available in more supermarkets. The premium is there, but it's not substantial. People are making judgments. They can buy organic. Most of them are, from observation, are preferring organic as well, because the costs have come down. Probably the inflation has pushed the normal product as well. The same will happen in fuels. The second question you asked about the bunkering, it could be substantial. If you go the Singapore way, where they've asked dedicated tankers, bunkering tankers for methanol, dedicated infrastructure, the estimates we were quoted from bunker suppliers in Singapore was $80 to $100 per metric ton, where it's exorbitant. It's an initial position. It's not a negotiated price, but it's exorbitant. The Korean approach, very low-handed, using existing infrastructure, or Rotterdam was $20 to $30. So that itself can be a significant advantage. So if Hong Kong takes a sensible approach, can be a differentiator. So these are the things. Though you're starting late, you have systems to compare now, and Hong Kong can pick the best systems which work economically, and of course use the China advantage and build a robust system.
Yeah, well, I get the sense that, we're trying to produce a new standardized product, which will be traded like a commodity in the future. And Hong Kong kind of have the opportunity to really be at the forefront of working out some details on this. So, this notion of innovating from a business point of view, because the technology seems to be there, right? It's getting the people together to be able to innovate. So that's kind of quite exciting for Hong Kong to get into. Kai, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to say that Hong Kong has large bunkering capacity, large tanks. After some years, they won't be having fuel oil. And if they start converting from now, but what I understand from the bunkering operators there's no incentive or startup from government. So they are looking forward. They have tanks available, a little bit modification, they can be made ready for methanol. Huge capacity, I believe. X1 can tell you, Sinopec is here, they can tell you they have huge capacity of bunker. And tanks are available here. So we can easily convert Hong Kong to, we can get small chemical tankers to get methanol from China and keep bunkering. It is the most convenient port to bunker.
Please.
So my comment for the cost reduction room is that, I saw a lot of, project feasibility studies. So generally for methanol production, there are two cost structures, or one cost structure, but two major components. One is your natural resources, your feedstock, and the other one is conversion. People produce methanol for decades, so the conversion is already very mature. But for the feedstock, it really accounts for 60% of the total cost. So if we look at the Chinese biomass, it's roughly half price of the feedstock in the US. And if we are calculating the renewable hydrogen from wind and solar, China's, the installation of wind and solar is almost 30% lower than the counterparts in US and Europe. And for the water electrolyzers, almost half price. So yeah, these are really the cost benefit.
Yeah, I think the China advantage is the lower energy cost and other costs. There's a question up there, please.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'm from Argus. We are providing the price assessment for commodity energy markets. We have already biomethanol price assessment for Europe and the US, and we are also now looking to launch the China price. Yeah, as Kai said, China, we also believe China will become the main exporter of biomethanol in the future. Yeah, our price is based on the modeled cases. We choose hybrid technology, as Tom Guest has been saying. We combine the hydrogen together with biomass as the key technology for the Chinese projects. I have a question for Maersk. How much green methanol demand from Maersk? Will be from Maersk for next year or the year after? What's your strategy for green methanol?
Yeah, I think so.
Purchasing?
I think in the very short term, there are still 2 months this year, next year. It's a bit difficult to tell because the availability of fuel there's a bit uncertainty there, right? But if we're talking about 2030 or 2040, we can simply do the math. Maersk now burns about 10 million plus ton of fossil fuel per year. And if you convert it into methanol, it would be about twice that volume. And so that would be roughly of course, by 2040, maybe we have alternative green fuels, but let's assume 100% green methanol, then that 10 million times 2 would be the volume we need by 2040. But by 2030, I mentioned, I think 25% of the cargo will be transported by green fuel. And there is the chance that this green fuel would be largely green methanol. If we translate if we do the simple math, it will be around 5 million ton per year. I think this is definitely what we can say.
Okay. Our lady Denise has just held up the sign that we have 10 minutes, right? So what I'd like to do is really to pretend. We're going to pretend that Roberto is our leader, and Roberto is going to lead this panel to speak to the government. The government is having its first meeting of this revamped board, and they want to know what's the smartest pathway to get onto new fuels, Hong Kong trading, bunkering, and all the things that you said in some well-aligned manner. And Roberto has already organized all of you in your area of expertise to say something. So I'm going to ask Roberto to round off at the end, but perhaps I can go down the line, including Martin. Maybe you can share some ideas with us what the Hong Kong pathway could be, that if you were sitting in front of the government, what would you say? Martin, you go first.
Well, okay. First thing is that this midterm measures from the IMO, lots of discussion going on at the moment. There's two themes. But the actual requirement is for them to agree something by April next year. That's actually not that far away. So once you've got the system agreed that you're going to have basically a levy or a green fuel index, which those are the two systems, you've certainly got a pathway then to say, okay, actually, because it's going to come into force in 1st of January 2028. So from 2028, that is when there's going to be incentive worldwide for you to use green fuels. Because if you don't, you're going to get a penalty, and it's going to increase year by year. So we're 2024 now, coming up to 2025. We've got 3 years, basically, to implement something to basically put us in an advantage position to basically use this worldwide incentive to basically start burning green fuels. So that's the first thing I would tell them. Get a move on. You've got 3 years.
Okay, so if I were to summarize what you're saying, first of all, the government, please pay a lot of attention to what the IMO is doing. Try and participate in that discussion, right? And thirdly is you have 3 years to get yourself organized, right?
3 years, yes.
Yes, well, a bit less than that, but that's when it's going to be implemented. So Hong Kong has a narrow window to really get at that level, yeah. Kai.
Yeah, my suggestion will be investment in the first training and knowledge sharing. So I always use the example that 2 examples. One is in Denmark. So the Maersk McKinney Moller Center was created 2 years ago. Their annual budget was more than 200 million USD. And also in a similar time, 2 years ago, the GCMD funded by Singapore MPA created, and their annual budget is 100 million USD. And if we should to invest is in knowledge, and the second is midterm that how about the infrastructure and storage, and in long term, how about upstream, like more and more renewable methanol projects.
Okay, so your important point is we got to up our knowledge, lots of training, somebody's got to do it, and we're going to look to, obviously, the shipping community to contribute in some orderly fashion who's got to learn what along the whole infrastructure and supply chain in Hong Kong if we wanted to grab that space for Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think if, it's perhaps a little bit bold, but I would say maybe we need to seek a little bit of a risk when we think about the investment in facilities. If we want to secure all the offtake agreements, I mean for the facilities like those storage tanks, like if you want to secure first 10-year agreement with all the volumes to be stored in the tank, that would definitely delay any investment plan, if ever possible. So I think that's my bold suggestion, is to take a little bit of a risk when you're thinking about making your investment decisions.
Okay, so that's a major big point, right? Yes, there are always risks involved in all of this, and government should consider being a little bit more forward in
and exactly, don't tie all of your hope on one company like Maersk. There's such a trend. We clearly see that. Then that's already something, right?
Right. Good. Thank you.
My recommendation would be to start executing now. Conventional methanol, gain experience from conventional methanol, which is available in plenty. Get the operational experience for bunkering, storing, etc., and transition to green fuels as soon as they get in. Use Hong Kong companies, a lot of experience with town gas. There'll be ships from Hong Kong companies, be it OOCL or China merchants. Use that ecosystem and start doing it. The problem is once green methanol or green fuel infrastructure is established in other ports, shipping companies won't change their bunkering lanes easily to accommodate Hong Kong later. So we still have time, but we have to start immediately.
Right, we have to move fast now.
Okay, so I would say don't worry, because we don't need to consider the whole supply chain. Hong Kong doesn't have all the resources. What we should concentrate is on the last mile. And then we do have a very successful case like the airport authority. We have the permanent aviation fuel facility that is initiated by the AA and then funded by private sector. Is a private sector participation scheme. And that is a kind of storage for the aviation fuel that Hong Kong actually has only one centralized storage facility to begin with. And then at the moment, we don't have any this kind of facility who are willing to invest in the storage for the green methanol, for example. And trading-wise, I think there is a lot of business opportunity. Everyone would like to jump in. But the infrastructure, I think Hong Kong is the last mile. As long as the Hong Kong government have some initiative to support that kind of centralized facility funded in a way that the operator would like to want that, like Tangas, we won the PAFF for the AA for more than 10 years. And then that kind of facility, once that is not for profit making, and then there's a kind of guarantee for the ship owner say, okay, Hong Kong get ready for the bunkering because there's a tank there. The rest will be the bunker service and the traders. So I think that kind of facility could be quite essential.
Right, well, that's good to know. Actually, there are some facilities there that can be used.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to say two things. Number one, Hong Kong government should make a green fund. Like Singapore is investing every year, I have been told, in $3-digit million every year they are putting separate fund for green fuel. That's number one. Number two, do not wait for ship to come and when they need bunker. You can start a pilot project now with a smaller tank, 5,000, 6,000 capacity, because any bunker, container ships will not be bunkering more than 2,000-3,000 meter cube bunker here. Start with the small one, allow a bunker supplier to build a bunkering barge, which can have 2,000 meter cube or 4,000 meter cube capacity, and start up. Once you have this, people will come to you. Right. And now, Maersk is not bunkering here, but OSCL, OSCL and COSCO, their ships are going to be in water 2026, is not so far, and making rules, regulation, and preparing a tank where you need to do zinc silicate coating or a stainless steel tank, you need time. So you need to prepare from now, start a pilot project, say target time end of 25 or 26, not 26, beginning of 26, to the end it will be too late. That's what the government should do now, help people.
Right, so invest a little bit of money every year to get things going as well as to engage stakeholders so that they could try something, right? And I guess this maybe dovetails with the training part, right? Give people a real hands-on experience to learn something. Roberto, this is your team.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is to government to put all of you guys on a team and sit you in a room and let's work it out. I'm on the Maritime Board, and I think that there's a lot of good stuff. I think that one of the things that we see already is where it has failed is that this industry is actually quite eager. I think one of the advantages Hong Kong has is that the industry does take initiative. And there is an eager industry. What we need is a leader. I think in the Maritime Port Board, we have great ideas, but it kind of falls when it gets to the actual execution part. So I would say for Hong Kong government, we have the industry already set and we have the direction. What we need is now somebody to take the lead, someone to stand at the front and say, okay, here's how we're going to go forward. I think the directions that the ideas that you guys have put out, I think cover it very well. We need to take a proactive step in investment. I think we cannot wait for the ship to come. And I think that there is the opportunity for green financing in Hong Kong. We have the mechanism, we have the industry, the financial institutions are here, and also even the GBA, the Green Finance Association. I think that what we need to do is put those two together and then start looking for storage. I think that that's one of the things that everybody has mentioned. We need to be able to understand from Hong Kong government how much storage space do we have. and how will that storage space be allocated? I think that one of the other ideas that came out is to do the training. I think a few people mentioned training. I think that is hugely important. HKUST, there is an opportunity here, a wonderful university that has engineering department, very good technical people. You could actually be a home base for training on handling green fuel. There could be a whole program here. And we could be bringing people in not only from mainland, but from all over the world, from all over Asia, using the systems that we have here. So I think that is great. One that I liked, I don't remember if it was Deepak that mentioned PR or getting the word out there that this is what we're doing. And I think that that's where Singapore, they lack, sometimes they don't have the front end, but their PR is so good that by the time the people hear about it, the front end is caught up. I think that what we need to do here is say, we have a plan. This is our plan. Put the flag out there and say, this is what we're going to have in Hong Kong. Industry, get ready, because this is what we're going to have. How are we going to do it? We don't know yet, but that's okay. We at least give the signal that we're going to be, this is what we're doing, and we have a marketing plan for how to get this information out. So I think that all of that could come together just by getting a panel together, getting a workshop to get a committee with just a few people, all of the stakeholders to be able to say, here's how this can work and here's what we need. So yeah, I think that you guys have nailed it.
Right, so I think we have the team, we have the ideas, you need to refine it a bit, you need to communicate a bit, you need to tell everybody, so we're assured that actually Hong Kong still has an opportunity, and you put a flag on this space and say it's mine. So please put your hands together and thank the excellent panel. Let me hand it back to Frida.
Okay, thank you so much, Christine, and thank you so much for the panelists. We now have a break.
Yeah, so in the past panel discussion, we talked about possible need to start getting started. And so in the discussion of opportunity to get started, we plan to ask the last section to talk about more technical issues about this material handling. All the consideration that gets you take into account to be at the compares all factors of methanol in the and also importantly and also have we management to share with partly in the second part about insurance, which we brought up methanol being a new field and we need to be very careful making sure that we can use it safely. So without further ado, I invite Honor from ABS to share with us, methanol bunkering, green methanol preparation. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Farmer Stanley for ABS Technology Department based in Houston. I'll talk about what my team working on in this presentation, but mainly I'll speed up my presentation into three parts. Where I will focus on AGS vision on decarbonization in the first part, a short brief summary, and the second part we focus on methanol fuel vessels, some design requirements, and the last part, part 3 will be more focused on the methanol bunkering operations. It is a little bit technical, deep diving on technical in the late afternoon. I hope I'll keep you awake as much as I can. I'll try to do my best. So for the first part, as I said, a brief summary of ABS vision on decarbonization. I will talk about a little bit energy transition, ABS fuel mix projection, publications, activities, and finish the first part with a comparison table. At ABS, as we look at the current landscape and the projected direction, we have identified the roadmap for innovation, taking us from today to 2050. And accordingly, we created ABS technology wheel. We call it technology wheel at ABS, and which is split up into three focus areas: digitalization, applied research, and clean energy transition, where you will see the alternative fuel slice, including ammonia, methanol, hydrogen mainly. Little bit talk about the decarbonization options. Again, at ABS, we are splitting up solutions into three categories, considering the IMO target 2050 net zero target, which possibly can be achieved by using alternative fuels and alternative energy. This will not be mentioned during any presentation today, but there is a big interest of nuclear energy also on the commercial vessel perspective. There are so many developments on this energy as well. So IMO has 2050 targets, but also there are some short-term and mid-term measures that can be achieved by using operational measures and technology improvements. Operational measures mainly focus on the existing fleet, how you can optimize your speed using some kind of pulley system, shaft power limitation to reduce your speed and reduce your fuel consumption, vessel utilization, finding some alternative routes to increase the efficiency of the existing fleet. There is also technology improvements, including hull coating, optimization. There are almost more than 200 vessels. We heard that we know that installation with air lubrication system, mainly LNG fleet, installation of wind powers, fuel cells as an alternative to the auxiliary power for large vessels. Cold ironing is also an option during the port stays, and carbon capture is developing, the technology is developing as well. As we are 2024, we have around 6 years for the first indicative checkpoint by IMO, where the target is 20% of reduction comparing with the 2008 values. And we are estimating at ABS, we are estimating that this 20% target will be achieved in 2030 by around 6% by using alternative fuels and 14 to 15% by using the operational measures and technology improvements. This is an ABS annual outlook of the fuel mix projection. As you see, almost around 90% of the existing fleet is still on oil-based, and the rest is LNG. But previously mentioned in the last previous presentations, there is a big interest on methanol since a couple of years. There are almost more than 300 orders in the new order book. So we are expecting a big peak on methanol. Actually, we saw it already. And in the coming 2 years, we may probably see the same peak for ammonia as well, because we already saw several ammonia fuel vessel projects orders in the new order book. So what is my team doing at ABS? We are developing the publications. We already developed several requirements for alternative fuels for methanol, ammonia, and hydrogen. My team also developing requirements for onboard carbon capture, liquefied hydrogen carriers, carbon dioxide carriers, and biofuel notation. We recently published 2 advisories. One is methanol bunkering advisory, and the other one is ammonia bunkering advisory in last April and June. They are all publicly available in our website. In addition to that, we are also heavily involved on the research and development projects. We are collaborating mostly with EMSA. As you see on the screen, all these publications and reports already published, and ABS co-authored all these reports. They are all available in the EMSA website, publicly available. They include the alternative fuels, very good information there, and also including some risk assessments. We are also collaborating Texas A&M University for helping us to understand the ammonia fuel basics, how it leakages, how it disperses when it meets with water. A quick fuel comparison table. As you see, I think the methanol storage condition is very similar to the diesel conventional fuel. You can keep the methanol in liquid phase under atmospheric temperature and pressure conditions, which makes methanol very attractive. Another advantage, I would say, the carbon content is almost, almost half of LNG and less than half of conventional fuels, which makes another advantage. On the other hand, specific energy, if you look at specific energy, is lower than conventional fuels. This brings some challenges for the designers to locate fuel tanks. So you need around 2.5 times bigger tank volumes for a similar vessel type and size. So let's recognize a little bit details on methanol-fueled vessels. Let's jump into the regulatory framework. We know that IMO IGF code is released a long time ago, but only prescriptive requirements for LNG is in the IGF code. As the industry show a lot of interest on alternative fuels like methanol, class societies, I think, step ahead and provide some guidelines and requirements. ABS released the requirements, and then in 2020, IMO released a specific guideline 1621 for methanol as fuel. In terms of methanol containment, as I mentioned, it can be stored in an atmospheric condition tank. But as it is highly flammable and toxic, it is required to store your fuel in a closed-top tank, like needs to be provided with like the conventional LNG tanks with pressure vacuum valves. And also it is required that the vapor space of the tank should be provided with some nitrogen padding or blanket system. It was one question about the corrosivity. Yes, methanol is considered as a corrosive chemical. So specific materials like stainless steel or some sort of specific coating around the tank surfaces are to be applied to protect against corrosion. In terms of location, the methanol fuel tank should not be adjacent to engine room or accommodation spaces, but you want your fuel tank close to your engine, right? So there is an option to do that by providing 600 millimeter wide cofferdam and A60 plus A60 insulation. If you have an option to install your tank on open deck, then it should be off the 800 millimeter off the vessel side, should be protected against mechanical damage. You have to take care of combings for spill collection. You have to provide water spray system. It is not only for fire protection, it is also for cooling the tank surface in case of fire around the tank, and also dilute the methanol in case of spills. Another very similar sketch, I intentionally put this because it is from a very fresh release from Ajax from June, interpretation GF20. Also indicate this sketch, very similar as you see before. Fuel tank with cofferdams in green color, and A60 insulation in red color. If the tank goes beyond the lowest possible water line, then you can skip the cofferdam. And this interpretation also brings about the top of the tank. So if it is an open deck, then it should be analyzed during the risk assessment in case there is not much risk. So you can waive the cofferdam on top. I'm specifically mentioning this because of the space
restrictions. You need some space to put fuel tanks, and cofferdams are actually, creating lots of challenges. So this photo is from a methanol fuel vessel, ABS class. This line coming from the fuel tank and leading to the pressure vacuum valve. They provided a rupture disk in between. It took some time for me to understand, because it is not specifically required in class requirements or statutory requirements. I understand it is a specification from the ship operator. What it makes is basically, especially during bunkering, you may have some vapor accumulated in the tank with increased pressure. And the vapor is toxic and flammable. So instead of, actually it is kind of a preliminary warning giving to the crew and, if applicable, crane operators to give them enough time to stop the working on deck, and also to give them some time to evacuate to safe spaces before the vapor ruptures the disk and goes to release through the pressure vacuum valves. It is an additional safety measure. So I talk about a little bit on toxicity and corrosivity, but I think the major issue is the fire and explosion, because methanol, liquid and vapor are highly flammable, easily ignited by heat, spark, or flame. Methanol has a very wide flammability range, around 7 to 36% in air. Another important parameter is the methanol burns with a near invisible flame and produce no smoke, especially during daylight. You cannot see methanol is on fire. So the requirements, our requirements are not specifically mentions what type of detectors you need to provide, but specifies that the detectors should at least detect fire, methanol fires. So there are some technologies in the industry, of course. So some kind of approved infrared cameras, infrared detectors are to be used. Regarding the CO2, I will leave this. I will leave this on the last slide, because I will talk about it on there. Methanol is easily mixed with water, and in case you want to fight with methanol fire, you have to dilute it, and you have to dilute it more than 80% concentration to be able to extinguish it. This is another challenge. So what are the provisions for firefighting on ships? We are still talking about methanol fuel vessel. We are not go to the next step, which is the bunkering, barge or bunkering operations. So in terms of methanol fuel vessel, you need to have alcohol-resistant foam system covering the area below the fuel tank, and fixed water spray system for diluting as I mentioned earlier, diluting the spills, cooling the tank surface, and help fire protection. Bunker stations are to be provided with, again, foam system and portable dry chemical. Engine rooms and fuel preparation rooms provided with firefighting system could be a CO2 base or foam base, and also tank top and bilge area to be provided with also foam system. It is clearly required in the requirements. In terms of methanol fuel piping, it is very similar arrangement as we are very familiar with LNG ships. It should be provided, designed as per gas-safe machinery space principle. So all piping, all methanol piping in the engine room should be covered with an enclosure. So double wall piping system, what it's called. Even for some fuel vent pipes and bunkering pipes passing through non-hazardous spaces or safe spaces are to be provided with double wall piping. There are some exemptions that you may skip the double wall piping, but all needs to be evaluated during the risk assessment. Of course, there are several design parameters for methanol fuel vessels. But I just would like to highlight it is a liquid during the normal normally it is liquid phase, so some additional liquid leak detection, some compartments are clearly indicated in the requirements. Methanol vapor is heavier than air, so it may accumulate on the lowest part of the spaces, so you need to pay attention on the ventilation of the compartments and gas detection system. So I prepared some industry, some questions that there are some challenges and questions. One of them is why we are not using ballast tanks around the fuel tanks instead of coffer dams. I think it can be a feasible option. It is considered by several member states and prepared a proposal and sent to IMO, and it's under evaluation at IMO level. What are the concerns? So the ballast tank will become, of course, hazardous space, so you need to take care of the air vents where they are leading and the pumps where you should locate the pumps. There are some points that you need to take care. CO2 system, let me talk about it on only a few seconds. On normal conventional fuel vessels, you need CO2 free volume of the 40% of the protected space volume. But we have to admit, we know that methanol fire is wilder than conventional fuel fire. So there are some research studies and documentation in the industry saying that, advising that at least 25% of increase is needed to be able to fight with methanol fire. So there is an IACS interpretation coming up, and it will be applicable. It will be applied to the Circular 16 as an amendment, 1621. Cargo tank pressure relief valve lead underwater. Okay, it is very logical idea in the first look, because you don't want to release toxic and flammable vapor on deck. Instead, you can release it underwater, but there are some concerns. One is environmental impact. I will talk about this environmental impact on the bunkering section more in detail, but what I can say for now is there is no, you are pressuring me. There is what I was saying. Yeah, underwater. Sorry. So there is there is no regulation saying that you can discharge methanol underwater because there is no impact of methanol discharge at sea. There is no solid requirements for the moment. I'll talk about it more in the bunkering section. Okay, I'll give the floor to Mr. Prakash to talk about crew training, and I will come back for the bunkering section, part 3, in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Anil. Thank you, really appreciate it. Yeah, with the jet lag, he still managed to really do it on time. A little bit exceeded, but very, very good. And it helped to set the stage for fleet management, Mr. Chandra, to help tell us a little bit more about how to prepare the crew, and also how to make sure there's procedure in place to use methanol. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. I'll try to keep it very quick because we are running out of time and everybody wants to go home. So what I have done, I have made it a picture, like a lot of pictures, and I have tried to say why crew need training separate than normal ships. Why not crew are sailing on ship? There should be same regulation. So I've tried to explain that way. So to start with, we are a ship management company. We were founded in 1994. We are celebrating our 30-year celebration this year, 30-year anniversary. Dr. Banga and Dr. Rajansi were the founders. We have 650 ships under management, out of which about 230 is tankers, 27,000 crew with us. The dual fuel, where we come in. So this is the methanol fuel vessel which we have been operating now for more than 5 years. We dry docked the vessel also recently. Marikua and Mari Innovator. And from here, we are getting our methanol knowledge for the engine side. For the cargo side, we have been carrying methanol for long. We have about 28 dual fuel ships, 20 with LNG, 2 methanol, 3 LPG. We also did this for express containers, the methanol fuel vessel. Already 2 vessels have been delivered, which are running on methanol. They see also bunkered in Singapore recently, which we're monitoring closely. The crew pool. So last 5 years, we have built up, this is for dual fuel crew pool. We have built up to 1,500 crew we are expecting to have by end of this year. So why we need training for methanol fuel vessel? So you see what is different on methanol fuel vessel. This is on a tanker. There's a methanol service tank on deck, and there is a low flash point fuel supply system room separate on the deck. This is the, inside the room, you have the methanol supply pump. This is on the deck, and this area is, you can go in by the airlock system. And this room is completely protected by a water spray system. And here you have the fuel valve train, which is controlling the fuel supply to the engine room. So these things are not there normally on a normal fossil fuel vessel. This picture from container ship. So this is the ventilation fan for double wall pipe. Double wall pipe going to the engine room is ventilated continuously. You have a nitrogen generator. You need to purge the line with nitrogen. You need to keep the methanol bunker tank and methanol service tank padded by nitrogen. And this is a new thing for dry, the dry ships like container, car carrier, bulk carrier, PV valve. Many of the crew on the normal dry ship will not know what is PV valve. Also, people from gas tanker will not know what is PV valve. PV valves are there only on oil tanker and chemical tankers. Then you come to engine room, you have a panel, which is called dual fuel panel. You press one button, everything changes to methanol. And with the methanol, you have when you're running a ship on methanol, the transition from methanol to fossil fuel is seamless. You will not come to know if there is a system problem, there's a leakage of methanol somewhere. Due to some reason, there is shutdown from secondary fuel, it will be seamless transfer. The crew will not come to know that what happened and it changeovers to normal fuel. So methanol as fuel, why? We all know why. So I will not go much into this. Easy to store. The biggest advantage of methanol is, unlike ammonia and LNG or hydrogen, you can store it in a normal tank. Only you need to do is the tank need to be coated by zinc silicate. And normal bunker tanks, you cannot take methanol. The supply pressure is only 8 to 12 bar. So that is again, liked by all owners. They went to the Megi LNG engine is high pressure. They had to go for mega engine, low pressure, because everybody liked low pressure. But as you have seen today in the methane slip presentation, the two-stroke engine, low pressure, has very bad methane slip. And MAN has announced on 18th that they are stopping low pressure system. But methanol, the injection is low pressure, but injection is in the cylinder head, not in the scavenger space. So methanol, there's no problem of the slip. The methanol is already available at 85 ports. Emission, you already know. Future-proof. Why we say future-proof solution? They provide clear pathway, because the green methanol is coming, and with the mixing percentage in gray and green, you can slowly reach to 2040 and 2050. Today we have clear picture until 2030 from Methanol Institute of how much methanol we are going to have, green methanol, but we are working together, and we know that after 2040 and 2050 we'll have sufficient green methanol to meet with the requirement. More than actually 150,000 hours of operation of the engine. The main engine is on LGIM principle, liquid gas injection methanol principle, and it has got a fuel booster injection valve. So this is a new technology. When we started initially in 16, 17, there are a lot of issues. The issues continued till almost 2021. But now the third generation LGIM engines are working good. We are continuously running on methanol. And our ship didn't have methanol SCR, there was no SCR. But now the new generation ships are coming with SCR. The ship was compliant without SCR with Tier 3. Already owner has said about this. Now the big difference in methanol and the normal fire. The left side you see is a normal fire. Right side in the bucket, methanol is burning. You cannot see. But you take the thermal camera, you can see the flame there. Then the fire which comes out, the smoke is poisonous. If you're putting water directly to the methanol, methanol keeps burning. It does not extinguish. Methanol, when you're fighting methanol fire, it is a poisonous gas coming out. So you need a special, full, impregnable suits to fight the fire. So one reason, the fire is different. The firefighting method is different. That's why you need the crew to be trained for firefighting. And second reason is hazard. Why? Methanol is toxic. If it is absorbed by eye, skin, inhalation, all can be dangerous to you. Eye contact, you'll have irritation. Skin contact, it will enter into your skin. If you put methanol on your hand, it will go inside the skin and it will cause a lot of similar to inhalation. If you drink methanol, even 10 milliliter can cause permanent blindness. 30 milliliter can be fatal. The crew has to understand this because many people think ethanol is whiskey, drink, but it's not like that. Inhalation have the, actually, the crew on the dry ship actually are not aware. So we need to train them. I just tried to, but I think we have sort of time, but these are the area which are the exposure going to have the crew. Chemical tanker crew will know, but other crew will not know. Then these are the PPE standard which crew has to be taught. Which standard is for when, what kind of fire. Then the hazardous area where you have the tank, where you have the fuel preparation room, all those areas has to be marked and a special precaution is to be taken for those areas. Less than 200 ppm is acceptable for 8 hours every day, 40 hours a week. More than 200 ppm is not acceptable. Then these are the chemical suits. If you have high risk of vapor and high volume of liquid splash, you need full chemical resistant impermeable suit. The crew need to be trained to how to handle PPE, to handle spill or to handle fire. Now the requirement for the crew training. So seeing all this, finally the IGF code was made, but still now the IGF code is mainly made for LNG. But anyway, we have developed this is a standard for IGF code and what it requires to be done. So all crew, every crew needs to do basic 2-day training where they give little bit idea about handling low flash point fuel. Then all the advanced firefighting course is required to be done by, as per code, only master and the engineers. But now this is a new fuel. So what we are doing, and we are advising everybody, we are giving training to all crew, both basic and advanced course. Advanced course, they teach you how to fight fire as well. But they are teaching only LNG fire, so we are putting from our side how to fire methanol fire, we are teaching them separately. Some of the government have made their own training module additional to IGF code. Then they also need a training on the fuel gas supply system, which is done at the shipyard. And then the main engine, you need to do the course by ME course and LGIM course. If you have not done ME course, MN will not allow to do LGIM course. So we have identified these extra areas other than normal IGF code requirement, especially for hydrogen, nitrogen, and methanol firefighting method. Nitrogen is considered to be a silent killer. You will not know, and you will just die. You inhale the nitrogen, the brain thinks there is no CO2 produced. Brain thinks no need to breathe, and you just die. And on all the methanol fuel vessel, the bunker tank is padded by nitrogen. Nitrogen is used in the process of starting the engine, stopping the engine. So nitrogen is everywhere. People has to be trained for that. I've already said this. I want to highlight the PV valve, tank coating, and all the pipelines are stainless steel. Simple sketch for the red side is the methanol in the engine room. Outside can be no-need double-wall pipe. These are the safety points which I have listed out further. But Onur is also going to do the safety, so I'll go fast over it. So the operational difference is from other vessels is that you have a double-wall pipe. The temperature is controlled for going to the engine room. It has to be between 13 to 45 degrees centigrade. You should know how to handle methanol fuel valve train. The cylinder head has the FBIV, which is totally different. It's one unit, which is like fuel pump and injection all together. Crew need to know how to operate that one. And there's a sealing oil system between the cylinder head and the methanol. That sealing oil system crew has to be aware of. And there are a lot of safeties provided here everywhere, so that early detection and early stop. So the ventilation pipe exhaust has the methanol sensors. The water spray system. The bunkering difference is that unlike the normal bunkering vessel, you have the power-operated valves. You also, some of the ships have ESD system where you can shut the valve remotely. All crew is supposed to handle how to use methanol detectors. This is different than your normal hydrocarbon detectors. We have programmed them to 100 ppm and 200 ppm. 100 ppm is alert, 200 ppm you have to evacuate the space. Then you have to prepare your own manual on operation, methanol bunkering manual as your SMS, training, nitrogen, and I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prakash. Really nice presentation, and importantly, tell us why we need to take good care of the crew because of a lot of safety concerns related to nitrogen, related to methanol, and related to the invisible fire. So with that, talking about safety measures and training on the ship, may I just invite Onur to talk about the bunkering side, especially about port preparation and the bunkering operation. Thank you, Onur.
Yes, hello again. Let's kick off the bunkering operation. I listed some objectives. I think we all know that there are some options available for bunkering of methanol. You can use a truck, you can use a ship, tanker, barge, or a terminal. So this table indicates some advantages and disadvantages for these options. I copied from this table from our methanol bunkering advisory. And I highlight very quickly if you use a truck, of course, the one of the thing is the low rate of bunkering. So you may need to use a couple of trucks instead of one, and this may increase the safety and risk of leakages, of course, increase the connection and disconnection. In case of bunker barges, we know that we have not enough methanol bunkering barges or tankers available in the industry, so maybe some high investment is needed. If we consider a terminal as a bunkering, then we are a little bit concerned on flexibility because it's a fixed location, but it can be of course adjusted to any type of vessel and size of vessel. So I covered the methanol fuel vessel regulatory framework in the second part. Now I just listed some regulatory framework for covering the supplier side. So if it is a bunker barge or a tanker, obviously it is a ship, so it needs to comply with all the flag administration or the statutory requirements as well as classification society requirements. In addition to that, the IBC code to handling methanol. If it is a terminal, then the terminal port authority should decide about recognized standards to comply with to produce the storage tank and distribution system. Similar to the trucks, mobile facilities, trucks also should be produced according to a standard, recognized standard enforced by the port administrations like ISO standard. But all these barges, mobile facilities should be licensed by the port authority normally to be able to operate in a port territory. In terms of transfer equipment, bunkering connections, all should be produced according to Circular 1621 and IBC code. There are some normative references, recognized standards to produce some connections, or like AST connections by OCIMF and dry couplings by STANAG. There are also available some bunkering procedures for methanol. CWA published the specification for bunkering of methanol fuel vessels. It is contributed several industry partners, but funded by European Union. There's also bunkering operation regulations by Port of Gothenburg. I will refer some of the requirements in the next slides. In terms of Singapore, I think they didn't publish, if I am not wrong, they didn't yet publish any specific regulations. What we have in the interface, it could be a truck or terminal or barge. It needs to come with a kind of quick connection and disconnection system. If it is a terminal, generally it is coming with a loading arm to increase the flexibility of the operation, with a ERC system, emergency release system, with a hose and coupling. Both receiver and supplier side provided with emergency shutdown systems and ship-to-shore or ship-to-ship link. What ship-to-ship and ship-to-shore link does to ensure the coordination between the supplier and receiver, automatically close the emergency shutdown valves, stop the pumps in case of emergency. And there are some, again, industry standards to be able to produce these links. OCIMF and SICTO has industry standards for that. These photos also from a methanol fuel vessel. As you see, the ship-shore link, control panel, distribution box, and the connection on deck. You are looking on a methanol fuel vessel bunkering station. You see the vapor return hose and the methanol hose with quick connections. Methanol receiving vessels, so far, they are coming with a hose handling crane, as you see here, to help the operation and connection of the hoses. It's a very small crane, normally around a couple of tons, and small outreach to be able to do the operation. If we look at the supplier vessel manifold, similar arrangement we see on the supplier side, vapor return hose, methanol hose, and the dry breakaway couplings. As we know, methanol is very highly flammable. Static electricity is a big concern, so bonding with wire bondings should be arranged on the bunkering station. In addition to that, receiver and supplier vessel could have some kind of electric potential differences between each other. So this electric current also from one side to other can create some issues. Also, this can be avoided or prevented by using insulation flanges on the bunkering connections. For the hoses, of course, they should be type approved, prototype tested. And if you use a hose in a prototype test, you cannot use it on the real service. It should indicate the maximum working pressure and testing dates on the hose. During the use of the bunker hoses, you have to nitrogen purge them. Before starting any operation, you have to pressure and leak test to be conducted. After that, you can do the methanol transfer. And after that, again, you have to do the nitrogen purging before disconnection. You have to drain the hose as an example of draining to the receiving vessel tank. You can store your bunker hose on open deck. Also, you can store it in an enclosed space. Then a mechanical extraction fan is to be required at least 6 air changes per hour. Historically, bunkering is considered as a high risk operation because there is a high potential of release. So there is a non-exhaustive list here that may cause methanol release during bunkering operations. It could be because of external intervention from outside vessel operating in the port. This may intervene in the operation. Incomplete preparation, improper installation, wear and tear, and also simultaneous cargo operations and dropped objects can cause potential releases. So Mr. Prakash already highlighted the toxicity exposure limits, which is generally 200 ppm, accepted 200 ppm. So IBC code requires to have specific gas detectors for toxicity. If your gas detectors can detect flammability and toxicity together, then you are fine. Otherwise, you need to provide separate detectors for both of these. There are some research studies that I would like to also mention to you. I crossed one analysis in a methanol specification from Maersk. They basically estimated the evaporation rates and comparing the pool evaporation rate from a pool spill and a pressurized spray leak. And I just would like to give you the result of the study, saying that even this is a very small leakage on the pipe, pressurized spray, it creates much more vapor than a huge pool of methanol vaporized, because it is we know that methanol is liquid and it cannot vaporize very fast and quickly. Of course, it may change with the wind and temperature rating. It may change, but still, pressurized sprays are much more dangerous than pool spills. There is a DHI Denmark company. ABS also contributed on the analysis. They analyze the methanol spill in terms of toxicity and find out the critical no effect limits. And they did the analysis specifically for Port of Rotterdam and for the methanol spill during bunkering operation. What they find as a critical no-effect limit, they found 25 meters for methanol spills, and compare with VLSFO and ammonia, 70 meter they found a critical no-effect limit for VLSFO and 170 meter for ammonia. Environmental impact, I think this is also one of the most important issue because there is no solid guideline in the industry, but there are several member states already sent proposals to CCC10 last September, but they didn't have time to evaluate it, so they sent it to next MEPC section in April. So the argument is using the MARPOL Annex 2 requirements as it is applicable to cargo of methanol, and they allow the tank cleaning effluents can be discharged at sea in a calculated amount, with a limited amount, when the vessel is navigating at least 7 knots and I think 12 miles away from the land. Then you can discharge methanol effluent at sea on the methanol tankers. But the same issue for the methanol fuel vessels, but the rules are not applicable to methanol fuel vessels. So they want a kind of interpretation on that. This is, I think, a concern for the ship operators mainly. When they are dealing with methanol fuel, you will have leakages, spills on deck, so you have to collect them on the in the tank, and for the moment they need to discharge it at a disposed to a port. There are several research studies about the environmental impact of methanol also. You can find the results. We know that methanol can be fully miscible in aquatic environments and can disperse quickly. So it is less harmful than the other type of fuels. So I will not talk about more on the firefighting. I think I covered it good enough. So fire hose should be connected on the barge or on the supplier side and should be available during the operation. And as Mr. Prakash said, a pressurized water system is not advised to use for methanol fires because it will spread the fire in a worse. You can create a worse condition. How to release the mitigations? You have the double wall piping systems. Manifolds generally, if applicable, comes with vapor return hoses, so the vapor accumulated during bunkering operation come back to the tank. Emergency release system, inertic system, all helps the mitigation. And also dry breakaway couplings, as I mentioned earlier, they are required by the regulations, and they are generally produced with internal non-return devices. So when they are released, there is no or very limited amount of leakage accepted. Emergency shutdown button on a methanol ship. When you use it, there is also a list of reasons. I don't want to go through in the detail because of the time. So I think I covered this also, gas detection, portable or fixed gas detection systems are required on methanol barges or tankers. And as the vapor of methanol is heavier than air, so the location of the determination of the location of gas detectors is an important issue. So rules recommends to use some kind of gas dispersion analysis to determine the location. Emergency response plans should be available, both suppliers and receiver sites. Again, there is a non-exhaustive list I prepared that all these items should be included in the emergency response plan. How to manage the spills, where are the eyewash decontamination showers, what PPE is proper, as Mr. Prakash also explained about the PPEs, and how to access to enclosed spaces for emergency evacuations. And what kind of portable tools you need to use during emergency response also need to be included in the plan. This is a photo of a portable gas detector. The crew should carry portable detectors at all times during bunkering operations, fuel operations, and while entering fuel preparation room. Bunker surveyors should carry personal detectors. Okay, this is one of the most important part, I guess. Hazardous zone during bunkering operation, I think it's pretty clear in the rules, class rules and requirements. It's around 3 meter zone 1, and around this 3 meter additional 1.5 meter zone 2 hazardous area created around the bunker manifold valves, which is also required by the IEC code. Additional safety zone should be considered. This should be enforced by the Port Authority. Safety zone should be larger than hazardous zone and cover the bunkering station. I can give a reference from the Port of Gothenburg regulations. They specify that the safety zone are to be 25 meters around the bunker station, which is applicable for both supplier and receiver side. Additional security, no movement zone to be established as well. This time is, again, I will refer to Port of Gothenburg regulations. Again, they specify 25 meters here, but this time it is from the vessel perimeters on all directions. Simultaneous operations may include, of course, cargo handling, bunkering of other fuels, lube oil, delivery of stores, and basically the criteria is the operation normally should be outside the safety zone, unless it is justified during the risk assessment that doing simultaneous operation during bunkering is safe. And the operation, SIMOPS operation, should be well defined on the bunkering procedures. Risk assessment, to be able to allow, I think this is one of the starting point for a port authority to decide a kind of bunkering operation for new type of fuel. I think risk assessment should be conducted by the port authority, inviting the supplier side. It could be a bunker barge. Also, the receiver vessel operators should be invited, and a quick preliminary risk assessment should be done in advance. Quickly talk about the distribution of responsibility during bunkering operations. For the vessels, of course, the master or the appointed officer are responsible. If it is a truck, a well-trained truck driver is responsible generally during the bunkering. And for terminal, it is the person in charge. Before any bunkering operation, all parties should do a preliminary safety meeting, agree in writing the transfer procedures, maximum transfer rate, and agree in the emergency response plan as well as the safety checklist. And after the operation completed, also they need to do a post meeting to discuss about the whole operation normally, and the product and the quantity delivered. Okay, my last slide, I prepared some questions. And I'm sure you have lots of questions about bunkering operations, as it is a new type of fuel. I prepared some of them, I will give some highlights on this. Gas dispersion analysis is enforced by local authority or not? Basically, the answer is no for the moment. I didn't see any local authority regulation forcing to do any gas dispersion for methanol. Except, as I mentioned in the circular 1621, recommends to do this for the location of the gas detectors. That's all what we have. How the host connections to be arranged, I think this is also based on the case by case of the bunkering option you are using. And what is the estimated time? This is more operational question, so I'm on the engineering side. I discussed this with Mr. Prakash, and we come to an agreement saying that for conventional fuels, it will take connection, and to be ready for the operation, it takes around 30 minutes. While For LNG and methanol, it will take around 45 minutes to 1 hour, considering that you may have a vapor return line to be connected, if it is applicable. So additional holes to be connected, and also the operation requires nitrogen purging and pressure and leak test to be conducted before any bunkering operation for methanol. Are there differences between loading to a methanol cargo and bunker fuel, methanol fuel? I think it's a matter of capacity. We are talking about, of course, the cargo tank will bring a lot of capacity comparing with bunkering. But in terms of procedure and regulation point of view, for cargo, I think it's a matter of commercial issue. While bunkering is regulated by MARPOL Annex 6, the quality of the fuel needs to be, I think in the panel, there was a lot of question about the specification and certification of methanol fuel. What I know personally, ISO is working on a methanol specification as for fuel, and they are at the 50% ready at the moment. I'm not sure when they are going to release the ISO standard for methanol fuel, but it's on the way. They are working on it. Are there differences between methanol and VLSFO bunkering for a container vessel terminal? I think it's not specific to container vessel terminal, but if you are going to bunker methanol fuel, you need to have the proper infrastructure, proper storage tank. It should be a closed tank. It should be good, provided with, produced with a suitable material comparing with a VLSFO. Transfer system is to be properly designed because methanol is lower viscosity than VLSFO, so you may have more leakage risks on the transfer distribution system. I think we mentioned also the vapor. You have to be prepared for the vapor return system. You have to be prepared for the fire detection, which you cannot detect the fire easily. And firefighting, as we mentioned, even the CO2 system forced by the current regulations for conventional fuels is not enough to extinguish methanol fires. So final words, port authorities' responsibilities are high during bunkering operations, and their role is critical. So I think specific bunkering regulations for Hong Kong may need to be prepared. And also, I think as we are in a university researchers are very valuable studies. And I saw lots of studies for methanol on the environmental impact and toxicity. So I think, but all these studies are specifically done for a specific port, like Port of Rotterdam, they did it for Strait Malacca, the Singapore area, they did some analysis, but it is for mainly collusion, not for bunkering. For bunkering, as far as I saw, only they did it for Port of Rotterdam. So it's advisable to do some research analysis for specific for Hong Kong area, because it will change a lot with the weather conditions, wind directions, everything may affect the release. Okay, thank you. Sorry for it's already too late, too much technical. I hope you enjoyed and you are still awake. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anil. I think it's technical, but this is actually what we have been talking about, right? To prepare for the new fields, which is new in a lot of ways in terms of all the safety considerations that we need to look into, and especially I think Anil make a very good point. For new fields in particular, with all the toxicity and also safety consideration, it has to be site-specific, right? So even for MERS and for NPA Singapore, they have all done a lot of analysis to look into how to make it safe to do it. So I think we get a lot of useful input from you, from Pakshaf, about what we need to prepare, but I think it is a starting point for a long preparation for the field. But we only have 3 years, right, as Martin mentioned. So I think this is close to the end of the workshop, we initially allow for some time for questions. So if anyone have any burning question and clear question that you want to use like 3 minutes to ask, please raise your hand. Okay, seems like we are done. But then we have some closing remarks. May I invite Alexis? Thanks.
Well, I won't hold you here much longer. Thanks so much for your valuable contribution and also the participation here. With strong support from industry leaders like you and alignment with the recent policy address, I think Hong Kong is ready, and we must place the flag and march forward, even though we haven't figured out all the details. That's very important. We've learned that the existing chemical tankers can quickly be adapted to bunker barge, and also storage tank facilities should be planned and implemented in the next few years if we want to take up this opportunity. HKUSC is very proud to be a platform for this discussion, and as Christine was saying, in the future we hope that we can also help sell this message beyond the sector. But government's leadership will be the key. So we will try to enhance this collaboration discussion. And with China's green supply and green finance opportunity, I think, again, Hong Kong is well positioned here. A summary of today's discussion will be online. And also, I think we have another workshop which is coming up on, actually it's quite easy to remember. It's 1 month exactly, 22nd of November. And we look forward to seeing all of you, and maybe you can bring some more friends. Okay, thanks very much.
So thank you so much. I think this is the end of the workshop, but please join me, give a big hand to Billy, who helped us organize this workshop, hardworking, and also Ray and Denise, who have done a lot on the logistics side. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful evening.